Mic check. Good day to you all, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for turning into round one of the 2023 MRc E-Challenge, organized by the Master Race Car team with support from our friends at New Dimension Racing, and brought to you today on YouTube and Twitch by us, Sim Broadcasts. My name is Travis Mehlinger. It's been a long time since I've talked to all of you, and I'm joined once again by my good friend Tom Jones. Tom, help yourself to the mic. Say hello.
Hello everybody, very happy to be back. It's been a long time, as Travis mentioned, and we're starting off with a fantastic series to start the year.
Tom, you should be refreshed. You've had a bit of a holiday coming into this first round, the MRc E-Challenge, first of our, well, not the first, but one of our first major series of 2023. How are you feeling?
I'm good, Travis. I've well rested, as you said, and just can't wait to get going, really.
Well, I'm glad to be here with you. Thank you for joining us, and thank all of you who are on YouTube and Twitch watching. We are contesting round one, as I said, of the MRc E-Challenge today at the Mexico City E-Prix circuit, beautifully constructed by Michael Malik, camera work by Chris McElroy. We will see some of that in just a moment. We are getting ready to start the open qualifying session in the background. We should have it coming up in just a moment. Here you can see the circuit configuration. It is a very faithful, as I said, recreation of the Mexico City E-Prix circuit. We have 16 turns, uses the stadium section, though a little bit tighter than Grand Prix cars would go through there. And you can see that we have an attack boost section. New feature for this season is the attack boost. Works a little bit like a joker in rallycross cars would do. But instead of slowing the cars down, they go a little bit faster through there, and we'll talk a little bit more about that once we see some cars go through. We have, as I said, open qualifying. Each driver gets 2 hot laps in the open qualifying session. The top 8 from the open qualifying session will go into duels. We'll talk more about duels in just a moment. Following the duels, we will have one race of 27 laps, which could change depending on safety car, virtual safety car conditions, and then a second race 1 lap longer than the first, after the conclusion of the first race. And here you can see the car that these drivers are using to contest this season. This is the E-Challenger Evo done by Michael Malik. Fully electric car, rear-wheel drive, 770 kilograms. It says 469 horsepower on the screen there, but is actually 350 kilowatts. For 9 rounds of this season, each driver will be limited to 300 kilowatts in one of the races this season. They will be able to use the full power. In practice and qualifying sessions, they get the entire power of 350 kilowatts, which drivers are using as they go on circuit just now. As we said, this is round one at the Mexico City E-Prix circuit. We have 4 more rounds following the first. The second round will be at the Berlin E-Prix circuit on February 12th. We've got to wait a month for the next round of this championship. The Singapore E-Prix circuit for round 3 on February 26th. On March 12th, we will go to round 4 at the New York E-Prix circuit and then conclude the season. Round 5 at the Adelaide City E-Prix circuit on March 26th. All of these circuits on custom layouts that replicate very faithfully, very carefully all of the real E-Prix circuits in the FIA Formula E Challenge. Cars on track in the background now. We will go look and see the action on track in just a moment. And here we go. A nice shot of our safety car in pit lane. We'll pick up one of the cars on track. There we go. The number 77 machine. That is Alexei Grigoriev, who has obviously been into the barrier. Tom, this is a treacherous circuit in the open practice leading up to this qualifying session. Drivers having some difficulty navigating the narrow confines of these walls, hitting barriers, popping tires. Tell us a little bit more about your predictions for this event. I recall in the past you have made some bold predictions that actually came true, and when we were talking about it ahead of the show, you were hoping that would happen once again.
Yeah, I was very lucky last time out for some of my predictions, but as we said, very tricky how treacherous and narrow this environment is. Turn one especially, very fast, and then you've got the wall on the inside, and if you turn in, you're going to clip that, then you're definitely going to hit the wall on the outside. So you have to be super careful about that. As you see, Gabor here coming down to turn one, you've got to brake really about the 75 mark. There's that wall on the inside, got to watch that, and then you've got the bumps on the outside as well, which if you run a little bit wide, you're going to lose any chance of avoiding that wall again. And then, of course, turn three, you've got the narrow, very narrow corner there, and you've got the big wall on the inside and the big wall on the outside, which are really a key feature of these E-Challenge races.
Through the double right-hander and coming onto the back straight now, this sweeping left-hand corner. You can see in the background of that boost section, he'll be hard on the brakes right past the end of these curbs and pitch it into the stadium section. Just misses the wall there on the right side of your screen. Looks like he's going to catch a little bit of traffic coming through here. Traffic gets out of the way. Gabor looking pretty good here, using the rear of the car to help it rotate, putting the power down to get the car to come around. It understeers pretty badly on power, so they want to use a little bit more power to get the car to turn. Obviously, that is okay to do in qualifying and practice. They won't want to do that in the race because wheel spin means wasted energy, and they do have a limited amount of energy to make the race distance. They want to conserve that as much as possible. Gabor goes to the top. Minute 3:15. We saw times substantially quicker than that in the practice sessions. So I think there's lots of time in it for several drivers who are running near the top in practice, as we are watching Nico Pantola navigate that double right-hander now. Looks like he's on a warm-up lap. Doesn't look like he was at pace coming through those corners. Up to speed now going into the section. We got Lara, the number 5 machine, that beautiful orange with the black stripe down the middle and the teal blue on the nose and on the rear, coming through the final sequence of bends and into this sweeping right-hander coming onto the front straightaway. This corner is tricky, Tom. We had our eyes on turn one and this corner in particular when we were preparing for this show. Almost full throttle going through the final bend, and I think the bravest drivers with the best setup will be able to go full throttle through there in qualifying, but it is very tricky.
Yeah, it's incredibly deceptive with it. It's long, it's sweeping. The cars don't quite have enough downforce for full throttle. I think they have to go. I think the fastest I saw was about half throttle, early mid corner, about a third of the way around. They went about half throttle, let the nose calm down and move in a bit. And as it started coming back in, they got back on the power to accelerate through. That was some of the fastest I saw going around there. But it looks simple, but incredibly deceptive again.
Gabriel Lara very quick into the stadium section, pitches the car through these left-handers. Oh, using the rear of the car to rotate, but a little over-rotated and got held up by a slower car ahead of him. This is going to ruin his lap as they both go sailing through a stack of tires that was sitting there on the circuit. Lara was looking mighty quick. Now a lot of wheel spin coming into this final bend. He's going to try to pass. He thought about passing coming into this final bend. Lucidi in the way ahead of him. Lucidi looks like he's coming around to start a flying lap, but I think Gabriel Lara will be frustrated, not realizing the full potential of that lap. Is third quick right now with a minute 3:38, but I dare say he lost several tenths following the slower car through the stadium section. Reg LeBlanc, the Canadian, teleports back to pits. We have a look at this beautiful safety car with Tim Donater in command. Here we have Grigoriev's, the number 63 machine, currently in 19th, coming out of the back of the circuit, turns 5 and 6, that double right-hander. He is on a hot lap now, coming through this sweeping left-hand bend and on the brakes into the stadium section, turning a little bit early for turn 9 and wide of the barrier on the inside, but not on the outside. Grigoriev's looks like he's struggling with the car. Rody just started a lap, but he spun it around. We missed what caused that. Looked like he was a bit eager on the power, but he is safely out of the way. Grigoriev's is teleported back to pits as we go on board with Alexi Lamerto. I think one of the favorites for this event, Tom. All of these Sidus drivers very quick. Alexi Lamerto, a champion of past MRC events, coming through the back straightaway now and into the stadium.
Yeah, Alexi Lamerto in the earlier open practice session was one of the fastest. I think he was third come the end of it with a time down in the 102s. So those times are available to full, but because this is, of course, you only get 2 laps with the qualifying session here. You can either do 2 back-to-back laps, or what I've seen a few of the Sidus drivers have done. They did their first lap and they quickly jumped back to pits and did another out lap to get that fresh car ready for it. See Alexi Lamerto here coming through this final corner again. See now, you might hear him lift off around here. I think he did, and he's straight back on the power again, but he's sliding around slightly, then getting a fantastic exit there as he's just, I think, started his flying lap. I've just heard in my ear.
He has, yeah, wide of the normal line in into this lap to heat up the tires and carry more speed, but he just picked up some left front damage going into the wall there, and he's, locked up the front tires and into the barrier, teleports back to pits as we switch to Gabor, who is starting his final flying lap up over the curb and then back onto the racing surface. He might just get away with that into turn one, just misses the red paint on the right, and then the gray barrier on the left, quick through turn one, and now coming into turn three, this tricky left-hander just misses the barrier there, a little bit wide of the barrier on the exit as he sweeps through this right-hand bend coming down to turn five, hard on the brakes. Just missed the first apex. He's a little bit wide for the second apex. That might cost him a few hundreds. Through the left-hand bend here, and now down the rear straightaway and into turn 9. He'll be hard on the brakes in just a moment, right past the beginning of these curbs. Misses the barrier on the right, just touches the barrier on the left, won't lose any time doing that. Using the rear of the car to try to rotate it here. He'll miss one of these apexes so he can go tight through this left-hand bend, and now miss the sign on the right to go wide of the barrier there, just over the white line. Just missed the barrier on the right, just missed the barrier on the left, and he is feathering the throttle ever so slightly coming into the final bend, brings it all the way down to the curb on the right. He wants to stay left of the curb. He just does, and over the line. Minute 2:88 improves his time, almost 3/10 clear of his teammate Nico Pantola in second position. That concludes open qualifying. There are no more cars on circuit. Time's still running, but we don't have anyone out there. The top 8, which will advance, are Gabor with a minute 2.88 with Nico Pantola, his teammate. Second, minute 3:16. Lara behind him with a minute 3:38. Imran Azar in fourth position with Rick Cardle and Fix. Alexi Lamerto, though he struggled on his second flying lap, did enough on his first one to get into the top 8 with a minute 3:68. Jeremias Zanella Horoko in a minute 3:84, seventh position. And Jared Mead, the Canadian, sneaks through in eighth position with a minute 4.26. We'll be starting the knockout qualifying session in just a few moments. Tom, what do you make of that?
Yeah, that was exciting. As I thought, and I don't think I expressed it. It's you've got the high risk with the barriers nearby, and you've only got those 2 laps, so you have a bit of a balance between just want to get that banker for your first lap and then pushing with your second. I saw personally Rick Cardle off camera. He span into turns 5 and 6. I think he was a bit quick in there, locked the rear, and round he went. So that's why he had to aborted his lap because it was ruined there. And so interestingly, he was quick enough with his initial first lap with the banker to get P5, so he gets on through and into the dual stages.
So with the dual stages coming up, let's talk about that. So this works like Formula E, where the top 8 drivers from this open qualifying session will advance, and the duels are seeded. So it is a bit of a tournament format where the top driver, that'll be Gabor, then has a duel. They each get to set flying laps. He'll be paired up with the 8th place driver in open qualifying, that is Jared Mead. And then the second position and 7th position, 3rd and 6th, 4th and 5th paired up. The faster drivers in each of those duels will go to the next round, and then the faster drivers of those duels will go to the final round, and the winner of the final duel will then have pole position. Right now, I dare say that Gabor looks like the favorite for that. Alexi Lamerto, we know he had pace early on, but any one of these drivers, I think, could sneak through, maybe grab one of those top spots because this circuit is so challenging, and we have seen even the best drivers like Alexi Lamerto struggle to get around this circuit. One little mistake can ruin an entire lap, and when you only have one lap to give, ring it out for the fastest pace you possibly can is easy for one little mistake to set you back pretty far on the grid. All right. While we wait for the qualifying session, the knockout stage to start in the background, we will take a break for just a couple of minutes, and we will be right back with you. All right, we are back, and there you can see once again this beautiful Mexico City E-Prix circuit on the screen while we get the dual qualifying sorted in the background. Our matchups once again will be Gabor with Jared Mead, first and eighth place qualifiers in the open session. Next will be fourth and fifth place qualifiers Imran Azar and Rick Cardall. Next, we will have the third and sixth place drivers Gabriel Lara and Alexi Lamerto. We expect it to go a little bit quicker, but could still in the dual portion. Finally, we will have Nico Patola, Gabor's teammate, from second position in the open qualifying session against Jeremias Zanella, seventh position qualifier from the open session. Should have cars on circuit in just a moment. Tom, here's your chance while we wait for someone to go out of the pit lane. Your prediction: who's going to snatch this top spot?
Well, I think it's hard to imagine anyone other than Gabor winning this shootout. Definitely, he's been incredibly quick all the way through. He's sort of tested his latest braking zones and all that. So my money is on Gabor to win the duels.
And speaking of Gabor, he is on circuit right now, coming through turns 5 and 6. On screen, we have Jared Mead coming through that left-hander, and now the right sweeper coming around to the back of the circuit. He's trailing Gabor by about half a lap, both of them on circuit at the same time. We should see, well, we've switched to Gabriel Lara staying in pit lane. There we go. We're back on Gabor coming through the stadium section right now. A little bit of understeer coming through that left-hand bend. Looks like he's working the tires to get as much heat in them as he can. Wide of this right-hander, turn 15 before he comes through this sweeping right-hander. Just breathing the throttle a little bit as he comes through all the way down to the curbing. Just misses it on the right, but he has to do a big lift as the rear end of the car steps away. That's going to affect the speed he carries down to turn 1. Hard on the brakes at the 100 board. Just misses the red barrier on the right. Misses the barrier on the left and down to turn 3. Pitches the car in a little bit wide of the barrier, a little bit wider than he was in turn 1, but still carrying plenty of speed through the corner. Not quite to the white line through this right-hand bend, and now keeps the car nice and tight through this sequence of right-hand bends. Just misses the first apex and gets the second apex really tight. That's the fastest way through the corner, and now all the way over to the left side of the circuit, just over the white line, passing the Joker section. Behind him, hard on the brakes at the 100. He wants to miss the barrier on the right. Ooh, he goes a little bit deep and locks up the brakes, touches the barrier on the left. That's going to compromise his lap. Nice and tight through the first bend, but goes a little bit wide of the second. Wide of the apex in the third bend through this stadium. Gabor struggling on this lap. Maybe doesn't have enough heat in the tires. Wide of this apex too. Gabor, not a very good lap from him. He needs to send it through the final corner. He's coming through the final bend. Take it away, Tom.
Jared just hit the tyres on the inside going round the stadium section. It might slow him down a little bit. We'll have to see. He's been very clean through the start. Gabor's put a 103.37, so Jared's got that benchmark to beat. Run really well through the final corner. A good run to the line, and he's not quite got it. A 103.51, a very close first duel.
Yeah, I'm not sure that will hold up for Gabor because it's not anywhere near his benchmark in the open practice or in the free practice before we started the event today. Imran Azar now on circuit, hard on the brakes coming into turn 1. He has completed his warm-up lap, and he is now on his flying lap, looking to turn 3 now. Woo! The rear of the car steps out on him as he's approaching the corner, ends up going wide of the apex and touching the barrier on the right, so struggling a little bit. That will have cost him plenty of time. Rick Cardall also out on the circuit at the same time as we see him come through this left-hand bend now. He's a few corners behind Imran Azar. Rick Cardall using more of the road on the way into this right-hand bend. And now through this double right-hander, nice and tight through there. The rear of the car looked like it was behaving. The front of the car working really well for him. Now onto the left side of the circuit, just over the white line. He'll jump on the brakes for the 100 and pitch the car into the stadium. Tom.
Imran Azar is making a mess at the minute of the stadium section. It's not going well for him. He had a lot of understeer and then a big kick of oversteer. So I happen to think as long as Rick is able to put in a clean stadium section, he could be looking at going through from this duel. It really wasn't the best for Imran. He got a bit unfortunate, made a few little mistakes here and there. And there we go, 105.27.
Yeah, Gabriel Lara really struggling on this lap as we watch Rick Cardall come through the final corner. Wide of the curbs on the left side of the road. Probably could have carried more speed through there, but still can't take the top spot. He does an identical time to Gabor. Gabor, having set that time first, will be given credit for first position. Rick Cardall second on identical times, 3:37, as we watch Gabriel Lara come through the final bend over the start-finish line to start his flying lap, using as much of the road on the left as he can and just misses those speed bumps really quick through the first corner. Plenty of space on the left-hand barrier, but he looked mighty quick. Down through the third corner, he goes wide of the apex and then touches the barrier on the right. This will cost him a few tenths. Hard on the brakes into this double right-hander. Nice and wide for the first and tight on the second. He'll be able to straighten the car out, carry lots of speed down the back straightaway. Also using that wide line to come through this left-hand bend over to the left side of the road. He's going to jump on the brakes at the 100 board, giving plenty of respect to that curb on the left. And now, nice and clean through the left-hander into the stadium. This very tricky sequence of left-hand bends. It's a little bit like miss-hit-miss at the Nürburgring. Really nicely through that final left-hand bend. Just misses the barrier on the right coming out of the stadium section. Rear end of the car steps away from him a little bit, but he keeps it under control. Looks nice and tidy through this sweeper into the final right-hand bend. Feathering the throttle, trying to bring it all the way down to the apex without the rear of the car stepping out. Nice and clean over to the left side of the road. Just misses the left-hand curb and goes to the top spot. Minute 3:26 is Alexi Lamerto following him through the final bend, looking to take this top spot. He's sliding, big slide over to the left side of the road and across the line. Alexi Lamerto, only 5th position, minute 3:86. Tom, Almeida on circuit in the background. This is Jeremias Zanella. And Nico Patola coming across the line now, Tom.
Yeah, Nico had a really rough run through the final corner, so he's definitely compromised onto this lap. As we see him now, keeping it really tight to the inside on the brakes well, and getting a good rotation through this corner, not running out too wide, keeping it off the wall, which is really good, preserving that speed, getting the brakes early to get it pitched round for this double right-hander. Perfectly misses the first apex and then absolutely nails it perfectly for the second, and keeping it really close to the barriers and all the way down for this long back straight. Now, got to be careful of this rumple strip on the outside. Don't want to touch that curb, or it will throw you off into the barrier. Does an excellent job at getting it round without too many worries. Oh, too fast into there. Hits the curbs on the outside. That's going to cost him a lot of time. Doesn't want to be doing that big slide. He's probably lost a couple tenths per second through the stadium section there. And then really good rotation, balancing the throttle nicely to keep the car with a good pitch and balance, maintaining that speed as well as the rotation, not burning too much. I think he's just a bit too excited on the throttle through the long corner there. He's spin the wheels up a bit, but overall a good exit. And let's see what time he does. 103.46. It's a solid effort, and he's going to have to hope for the best now.
In the background, Jeremias Zanella looked pretty clean through the stadium section, but struggling with the rear end of the car and goes over the curb on the left coming out of the final corner. Must have struggled early in the lap because he's only able to do a minute 4:21. So Nico Patola wins that duel through to the next round. We will have Gabor, followed by Gabor and Rick Cardall. Gabriel Lara will go through, and Nico Patola wins the final duel. We have those 4 drivers through to the semifinals in the duel portion.
The 4 drivers that have been knocked out as well, they're all going to be sorted 5th to 6th on where their qualifying position was, of their qualifying time from the first open qualifying.
I believe Tom meant 5th to 8th there, but no blame to him. I think it was clear enough. The duels, the lineups for the second round of duels will be Gabor and Rick Cardall, who set identical times in the first portion of duel qualifying. Gabriel Lara, Nico Patola will come after those two, and we should have them on circuit in just a moment. Waiting for an indication in the background. Here we go. We've got a car coming on circuit now. Not sure which one yet. It is a Sidus car. We've got 2 Sidus cars in that round. That is Gabor lined up first. Rick Cardall lining up in the background. One thing we didn't mention, but I think it'll be obvious to our viewers by now, Tom, is we've got 3 Sidus drivers in the top 4. Though Nico Patola today racing for Pacific. He's a familiar face in the Sidus stable. But today, I guess going his own for another team as we watch Gabor start his outlap coming through this double right-hander, which is so tricky. Tom, someone mentioned this before the broadcast, and I saw Nico do it on his flying lap. And as far as I can tell, he was the only one who did it, or it was the only one where it was obvious that he did it. Some drivers choosing to use the handbrake coming through that double right-hander at 5 and 6.
Yeah, I think it's not something we're going to see in the race due to it's going to cost you a lot of energy to get the speed back going again, but it does definitely get you turned faster and get a good exit down onto that long back straight, of course. So it'll be interesting to see if that's implemented during the actual race.
I'm watching Rick Cardall coming out of the stadium section now. Gabor will be starting his lap just about now. We'll keep an eye on him in the background as we watch Rick Cardall coming through this final bend. Also feathering the throttle, Rick Cardall, a really good lap from him to level with Gabor in the first round of dual qualifying as Rick comes across the line hard on the brakes coming into the first corner. We're hearing that Gabor is struggling a little bit in the background, but there we go. We see him sliding through the right-hand bend. Looked like he was definitely on the handbrake, and the rear of the car got away from him wide out to the right-hand curb there as he comes down at the back straightaway, throws the anchor overboard for this right-hand bend into the stadium section, just misses the barrier, really clean through the right-hand bend into the stadium, and now negotiating this tricky sequence of left-hand bends, just missing the tires as we look back to Rick Cardall on the binders, missing the paint on the right, hard into the barrier on the left, a little bit too quick into the stadium section. May yet be able to salvage this because he was cleaner in the first part of the lap. Gabor coming around the final bend now as Rick negotiates the stadium. Tom, take him across the line.
Oh, so down the long straight there, coming up to line. I didn't see exactly how he did for the corner, but a 103.2, so definitely improvement on his first time. As Rick is sliding all the way around the final corner, this is going to lose him a lot of time and not quite what he's going to be wanting to have happen. See what he does. He does a 103.64. Gabor wins this duel and proceeds on to the final.
Yeah, watching Nico Patola and Gabriel Lara on circuit right now. Nico Patola coming out of the stadium. Gabriel Lara starting his flying lap. Leaned out of the throttle more coming through the final bend and then was fully on it and didn't lift coming out of the corner. Gingerly onto the brakes into the first bend, but he's through the right-hander very cleanly at turn 1. Now through the sweeping turn 2 on the brakes, a little bit wide of the bumps on the right, but he goes wide of the apex and touches the wall. Now coming through this right-hand bend, the rear of the car wanting to step away from him, very wide of the first apex, but he gets it nice and tight for the second one. Just missed the red tire stack on the left side of the road. Gently brings the car across the white line, past the gray walls here. He'll jump on the brakes at the 100 board and turns in, wants to just miss that tire stack. He does. Very respectful of the barrier on the left, nice and easy on the brakes into this first, second, and now lining up the third left-hand apex in the stadium section. Nico, hearing he's done a big slide in the background, going to cost him some time. Gabriel Lara does not look to be the fastest driver through, but he does happen to be the cleanest driver through thus far. Now nice and easy in the throttle, getting this car settled, coming into the final right-hand bend, goes wide of the apex, steams down the front straightaway on the white line and across the line. Second fastest, minute 3:31, as we wait for Nico Patola to come through the background up over the curb. That will have upset the rear of the car. But Nico Patola, slowest of the minute 3:75. Winners of the duels are Gabriel Lara and Gabor. The two of them will be on the circuit in the final duel for pole position just as soon as they can reset cars and be sent out of pit lane by race control. Tom, your prediction is looking pretty good. Gabriel Lara quietly driving clean laps, not quite as ragged as the competitors, and it looks like it's paying off because whereas his competitors are making mistakes and losing time, he is right up there in the final duel with Gabor.
Yeah, Nico was looking very good going into that. Coming towards the stadium section, he's been very clean and very quick and very precise through the whole thing. Just as he was getting to the stadium section, he just touched that curb on the left as he got on the brakes and it just unsettled it. He didn't have enough to slow down and had to pull the handbrake and sort of hope to get himself through it. He did get through, but with a hefty tap on the rear left.
Gabor lined up first and leaving pit lane. We will wait for Gabriel Lara to be sent out onto track. Pit exit closed notification giving to them now, and pit exit open. Gabriel Lara off and going as Gabor goes through turn 3. See if Gabor does anything differently on this lap. He does have, I mean, he's so talented. We know he has the ultimate pace. Several drivers have told us in the past on and off broadcast that Gabor is a hero on the brakes, the very last of the late breakers. But this car seems to reward patience and care and finesse more than it does raw power. If we're watching Gabor come through the stadium section in the background, sliding a little bit, that's okay to do in this qualifying session. Helps warm up the tires, and they don't have to worry about conserving power. And here's Gabor, nice and wide into this right-hand bend to set up as much speed as he can into the final right-hand sweeping corner. Tom, take him down to turn 1.
So flying out now of the final corner, all the way towards that curbing on the outside. Don't want to go over it, as you will lose a lot of speed. Braking there at about the 75, turned in very full commitment, missing the inside, missing the outside perfectly, all the way in the right by the curbs, hard on the brakes, and getting the car well rotated there for turn 3. Not hitting the wall, doing a fantastic job, much cleaner than what we've seen him do in the previous attempt. Braking very well as we see the rotation on through. As we swap to Lara, once again doing a very good job as well, getting round turn 1 nice and quick without clipping the walls, not going as tight through turn 2, but on through turn 3, really close to the wall on the inside and the outside as well, sliding it round there. On the brakes now for turn 5, running a bit deeper than Gabor did, but getting it back in and right onto the apex and accelerating hard down that long back straight. Here we see Gabor now in the stadium section. I think on his way out the stadium section, not as wide as earlier going into this final corner, but getting round there and just really holding the line really well, not sliding too much and touching that curb a little on the inside that might compromise him. He's gone onto the curb on the outside to see what he does. Crosses the line at 102.47. What an incredible lap by Gabor. That is the fastest lap we've seen today. I'm willing to put my house on it. It's absolutely rapid. And here we see Lara coming round the final corner, a bit more conservative, and then getting back on the power, not hitting that curb on the outside, and does a 103.28. So Gabor is our pole position driver.
Gabriel Lara was clean all the way around the circuit while you talked him through the first half of the lap and then picked up Gabor as he was coming through the stadium very cleanly. Gabriel Lara looked clean, but just not nearly as quick. Your prediction comes true, Tom. Gabor at the top by a ton, manages to beat his own open practice time by about 0.3. Gabor is the class of the field, wins the dual portion of qualifying, will take the top spot ahead of Gabriel Lara.
Yeah, that was a fantastic performance we saw from Gabor there. That was one of those where the driver just pulls an absolute miracle out of a hat sort of thing. I did not expect to be seeing a 102.4 in the qualifying there.
Yeah, stunning lap from Gabor. We don't have a graphic for this, but we do have the qualifying lineup, the top 5 qualifying lineup anyway. Gabor, as you've just seen, will take pole position ahead of Gabriel Lara in second. Gabor's once teammate, but not a teammate today, driving Pacifictech, Nico Patola will line up third position with his teammate. At Citus, Rick Cardall in fourth position. Imran Azar, representing Master Race Car, will start fifth with Alexi Lamerto, the third Citus driver. Lining up sixth, Jeremias Zanella will be in seventh position. And rounding out the top 8, the Canadian Jared Mead. They're in eighth position. The rest of the grid following Jared Mead will be Leandro Vargas in ninth position, followed by the Turkish driver Onur Enkenstein, Lorenzo Lucidi in 11th, Martin Capal starting 12th, Carlos Eduardo, one of 6 Brazilian drivers, will start in 13th position with Breno Almeida in 14th. Reg LeBlanc, our second Canadian driver, will line up 15th. Lucas Rosa and Pedro Vitor will line up 16th and 17th. Ronan Kronpush in 18th. 19th to 20th, we will have Oleg Grigorievs and Alexei Grigorievs. Yasin Badal will start 21st. 22nd, we will have Felipe Almeida. And rounding out the back of the grid, all on his own on the final row, will be Paolo Valeschi. In the background, the race control admins will be lining up the grid. We've got a safety car going around on the circuit right now. While we wait to get this race started, we will take a break for just a few moments and then return before we get underway for the first of 2 races today in round 1 of the MRc E-Challenge at the Mexico City E-Prix circuit. We will be back with you in just a moment. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am Travis Mehlinger, joined once again by Tom Jones here on Sim Broadcast, where we're bringing to you the first round of the 2023 Master Race Car E-Challenge. We still have drivers getting ready in the background, attending the driver's briefing, but we do have a few more things to talk about that we did not cover in the time leading up to the open qualifying and dual qualifying sessions. We've got some interesting rules and some enhancements, some changes to the previous season of the E-Challenge. One, which I believe we experimented with in the past, but it wasn't as dynamic, we'll say, is the weather system. Right now, the session is dry. The qualifying sessions were dry, but at any point during the event, the conditions could change. It could become wet, in which drivers are compelled to come in and change tires, which could, of course, completely change the complexion of the race. Tom, I think you'll recall an event in the last MRc E-Challenge, which was declared wet, and drivers on road tires struggled a bit to navigate these tight and twisty circuits.
Yeah, it's an interesting change watching them because, of course, we don't have the actual rain simulation in LFS, unfortunately, but we do have the less grippy tyres, of the road tyres. So it was interesting watching them go from all their practice on the race tyre compound onto that road tyre compound for simulate it. It was very interesting to see.
And then in addition to the wet and dry conditions, and the wet conditions can include light rain or heavy rain, which compel different tire choices, there's also the wind level that Live for Speed already has. So combining wind plus rain and treacherous conditions, difficult tires that make it hard to drive these cars around could certainly add another interesting dynamic to the race. Notably with these cars in particular, Tom, because wheel spin is so treacherous and so dangerous to the prospect of completing a race. Being in the rain, not only does it add an element of care, or does require the drivers to take a little bit more care to tiptoe around the circuit, they also risk not even finishing.
Yeah, it's definitely a interesting change that can happen. And to be fair, how you were saying it there, it sounded like you're writing down an equation and you just forgot to add the equals at the end, which is safety cars. So, wheel spin, bad weather, high wind, it's going to breed crashes, which equals safety cars.
And then the other element to this race will be the attack boost. We've seen as cars go around the circuit while we were covering practice qualifying sessions, there is a joker section, is how we've referred to it, outside of turn 5, where drivers can go 3 times during a race. They are compelled to go no more and no less than 3 times a race through that joker section. And because of the way it is constructed, they'll actually accelerate a little bit more than they normally would under normal power. And they can use that to their advantage if they need to attack, make up time, make a pass. That is the place where they can do it. We are just about ready to set the grid in the background. One final thing we can talk about while we're getting going is the power-up wildcard. I don't believe anybody has elected to do it for this race, but we said at the top of the broadcast that these cars have full power of 350 kilowatt. In these race sessions, they will be limited to 300, so they don't have full power except for one race, not one round, but one race of this season. They will be permitted to use the full power. Again, nobody electing to do that today, but that will add another element, another bit of uncertainty for all these other drivers at some point during this season.
Yeah, I think why we haven't seen that today is people need to still get used to the car properly. You want to get used to how the event's going to plan out, so they want to be able to plan properly with you pulling the trigger on that wildcard event.
We do have cars on the grid now. A little bit of lag in the background, some strange things happening with cars bouncing on the grid, but we are just about ready to do the grid presentation. We will be looking for Gabor in pole position. We can see him there in the background on the right side of the circuit. We will drive down the line and introduce all of these drivers in just a moment's time. Here we can see Gabor on the right side in pole position alongside Gabriel Lara in second. The Spaniard ahead of Nico Matola on the second row in third position, with Rick Cardall alongside in fourth. On the third row of the grid, we have Imran Azar, the master race car driver, in fifth, with Alexei Lemerto onside sixth position. Jeremias Zanella and Jared Mead will form up the fourth row of the grid. Jaron Mead in eighth, the first of the two Canadians today. Leandro Vargas will start in ninth position with Oner Enkenstan, one of the Turkish drivers today, in 10th. Lorenzo Lucidi, the Italian, will start 11th alongside our own friend Martin Kupal in 12th. Two Brazilians on the seventh row of the grid, 13th and 14th. Carlos Eduardo, followed by Breno Almeida, the second of the Canadians in today's event. Reg LeBlanc will start in 15th alongside Lucas Rosa. In 17th position, we will have Pedro Vitor, another master race car driver, with the first of three Latvian drivers all in a row. Roni Kronpush there on the left side of your screen, starting 18th. The brothers, Oleg Grigoriev and Alexei Grigoriev, starting 19th and 20th. And now on to the 11th row of the grid, we have Yacine Bidal, another Italian driver, in 21st, with Felipe Almeida starting 22nd. And all alone on the final row of the grid, Paulo Valeschi, the final Brazilian driver. Now, we wait for the lights to go on. Tom, a little bit of a delay in the background. Everyone raring to go. You predicted chaos going into turn one.
I am going to be surprised, to say the least, if we don't see one or two cars having trouble getting round turn one. If for whatever reason someone spins, then we're going to have a major issue getting through turn one. It will look like the M25 for those of you who know England.
I am somewhat familiar with England. I visited you over the summer, but I don't believe we drove on the M25. We should have lights coming up in just a moment, keeping an eye on Gabor there in pole position. We've got the lap counter up on screen, getting ready to go any moment now. Still waiting for race control to bring up the lights and turn these drivers loose. No chatter from the drivers, so nobody getting terribly impatient yet. But I believe, Tom, I think it's fair to say that that we're ready to go here. We are very excited to kick off this first round of the MRc E-Challenge.
Yeah, I am antsy. I am ready to watch this. This is going to be, it's always an incredibly exciting series to watch. The cars are close, so it's going to be very close.
Still waiting for race control in the background. Hopefully we'll have this underway in just a moment. There we go. Lights up. Watching Gabor there in pole position. 1 red, 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights come on, and we wait for them to go out any second now. There we go. Green flag. Gabor is away cleanly in first position. 2 jump starts in the background, but Gabor easily away into first position. Behind him, Gabriel Lara cleanly through in second with Nico Pantola in third behind him. A little bit of jostling in the background. Still some cars going side by side, but as yet, no carnage. Tom, you made a prediction. It didn't come true.
Yeah, what to say? Some things can't, but I think someone's rolled it further back. Yes, they are. So, yes, I did make a prediction of chaos, and we are straight to a safety car, just like that.
Safety car deployed, safety car deployed.
So, Tom, safety car deployed, as you said. But you can see in the background, Nico Pantola is behind Gabor. Nico Pantola opting to take the boost section on the very first lap and managed to get by Gabriel Lara. What we will need to see is whether he was actually past Gabriel Lara when the safety car was called. We'll wait for race control's call on that. He was certainly into that section before we got the safety car call. But now we wait to see their decision. So, clean through turn one. Bad prediction there, Tom. But I think you're vindicated because we have a car up on its side in the third corner. There we could see the, we could see the race control message on our view here. Car on its side in turn three. Driver is instructed to stay left. It is clearly on the outside of that corner. And there we go. All of the breathlessness in practice and qualifying and the anticipation of the race. We get a moment to breathe to start the very first round.
Yeah, and I believe the car that has rolled is Lucas Rosa as well.
So race distance at the top of the screen shows 2 laps begun. That's not finished. We've concluded the first lap. So we're on lap 2 of 27. That distance will be extended by race control because obviously as we are crawling around under safety car conditions, not using as much energy, and the entire point of this challenge, or I should say one of the key elements of this challenge, is conserving energy, using the limited amount of energy available to the car as judiciously as these drivers possibly can. So we wait for 2 decisions from race control. One, whether Gabriel Lara will take second place back from Nico Patola, who chose to use the boost section on the very first lap. We don't know whether he was ahead yet or not. And then the second will be how many laps they choose to add to the running total for this, the first race, and the first of 2 today in the first round of the MRc E-Challenge. Once again, going around the Mexico City E-Prix circuit created by Mike O'Malley with these excellent cameras from Chris McElroy, one of our teammates on the Sim broadcast team. While we're waiting for these decisions from race control, Tom, we can describe this, though I don't know we have a way to show it, but we can probably share it with the community sometime later. This reconstruction of the circuit and the cameras that that Mo has done for this circuit were so carefully done, such a faithful recreation that he overlaid a replay of someone driving around this layout that Michael created for Live for Speed, and a camera shot from the actual race in the Formula E race at Mexico City, and they overlay perfectly. They are absolutely identical. Apart from colors and the lack of advertisement boards and some of the scenery in the background on the layout, you can hardly tell them apart. Really, really masterfully done.
Yeah, if you just had a track map, it would be absolutely identical. I will say I was a bit confused at first. I thought he was just showing the the actual race location until I think it was slightly later on he dropped one of the layers. So you're able to see that it was actually the Live for Speed recreation, which is just so perfectly redone.
There we've gotten the call for safety car in this lap. Have not seen, if they called it, we missed it. We'll check on this. Have not seen if they're adding a lap to the race total. I assume we'll add at least one. But right here we can see, we're looking back from Tim Donater in the safety car. Gabor, just a moment ago, had Nico Patola right under the rear of his car. Yeah, this very long shot down this straightaway over the top of the wall. Gabor coming into the stadium section now, leaving plenty of space to the safety car ahead of him. He'll want to get a jump without passing Tim coming around the final corner. Still waiting to hear whether the final lap total or how much the final lap total will change. And now we wait for these cars to finish navigating the stadium section. Gabor will be on the power in just a moment, waiting for the call that the race will resume. He's hard on the power coming out of that corner. He didn't get too big a jump on Nico Patola. Coming around the final bend across the start-finish line, Tom, take him into turn 1.
Yeah,
green flag.
Pretty good exit of the turn there. Nico and Gabor have pulled out a gap to those behind. Gabor has gone to power save early. He's lifted up, braking nicely at the 75, turning in, not taking any chances, not overly pushing. Of course, this is only really the second flying lap of the race, so no point trying to go for the win.
Safety car deployed,
straight back to
upside down at the last turn.
Yeah, didn't see why we got the safety car call this time, but in the background before the safety car, Rick Cardall did get by Gabriel Lara for third position, and someone has gone in the boost. Not sure who that is. Haven't seen who went through the boost section.
The boost, not this time. It's just we've got the display up now, as you can see. Next to the drivers on the board, we have the 3 lines. Every time someone uses a boost, that will get ticked off. So of course, Nico went through the boost on the very first lap, so that's why he's only got 2 bars next to his name, and everyone else is 3.
Thank you for clearing that up, Tom. I misunderstood the call in my ear. Exactly as you said, Nico Patola, the only one so far to have used that boost. And obviously, he was able to complete that pass on the first lap cleanly and was given credit for that position ahead of Gabriel Lara, who lost, as I said a moment ago, lost their position to Rick Cardall, who was able to jump him in turn 1, coming around to the safety car restart. Under safety car once more, an auspicious opening to this season. 2 safety cars in as many flying laps, but hopefully we can get the jitters out of the way under this safety car. and we will get to proper racing in just a few minutes. Energy graphic up there on the screen right now. You can see everyone pretty close to level 92, 93. Rick Cardall used a little bit more than all of his competitors around him, down to 91, but he'll be able to conserve under the safety car. He might have to be cautious with his energy consumption in the closing laps of this race. He's already a couple percentage points behind some of his competitors, but everyone reasonably close there. Nobody obviously in, at least not at this point in the race, nobody in any serious danger of running out of energy as the race comes to a close later on.
Yeah, I did a brief calculation before the race. I think it was 3.6% is sort of what you want to be maximum using during the race, your lap allowance, if you will. Of course, that's now gone out the window. I did that, and then we've had these 2 safety cars now, so we're going to end up with laps added on. So we'll have to see what we're going to get to with how many laps we end up with added on. I'll try to do a brief calculation then, and then we'll find out what we're at.
So word in our ear is they're trying to decide what the final lap total will be under safety car, and we're working on finalizing those numbers under the first safety car when we quickly got another one. So the brain trust with the calculators in the background are still working apace at figuring out how long this race will go. In the meantime, the grid comes by the stricken car on the right side of the screen in the background, left side of the road for these drivers, across the line to start the 6th lap. Under safety car conditions here, we've had not even a full flying lap. First lap of this race immediately went under safety car as all of these drivers, well, as the drivers negotiated turn 3, one of them ended up on its side. And then as we came back to green flag racing, another one flipped over in the final corner. Now driving around on the 6th lap behind Tim Donater in the safety car. Rick Cardall, that is Gabor in first position in an identical livery to Rick Cardall, with Nico Pantola, his teammate, or his once teammate, driving for Pacific Tech today. Behind him in second position, Rick Cardall in third, Gabriel Lara in fourth, Imran Azar in fifth, Alexi Lamerto, another Sidus driver, in sixth position, with Jeremias Zanella in seventh, Leandro Vargas running in eighth, Jared Mead down one position from his start in eighth, running in ninth position, rounding out the top 10 on the 6th lap, Lorenzo Lucidi. Tom, I hope we can have a clean go of it once we resume racing. Ooh,
yeah,
late safety car call here.
Cars.
Sorry, Tom,
yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I was just saying very late safety car call there, and I was saying I'm sure we'll be getting clear of the safety car soon. Now the track's clear, and there we go.
Gabor backing everyone up, lots of cars jostling, and a few taking evasive action to avoid hitting the cars in front of him. Oh, Gabor backed up Nico perfectly coming out of the stadium. Nico on the brakes, and the car, Rick Cardall, behind him narrowly avoided him. Gabor gets a huge jump coming into the final bend, with Nico Patola behind, Rick Cardall trailing. Gabriel Lara and Imran Azar behind them, well behind. Gabriel Lara lagging third position by 15 car lengths. Cars pretty well spread out now as we watch Jeremias Zanella come through turn 1. A couple cars going wide, but managed to avoid contact. That is Jared Mead on the outside coming into turn 3. That's a brave move. Looked like he had lost ninth position and managed to regain it. Everybody clean so far through the first 3 corners. Hopefully we will get this entire lap finish flying as a car in the background, 2, 3, 4 cars going over the boost section.
Yeah, Imran.
Pedro Vitor, one of those.
Yeah, Imran Azar and Lara. I think Lara actually got overtaken by Imran Azar on the way into the boost, actually, so it's definitely not worked out for him there. And someone spinning it on a perfect 360 there. That was fantastic.
Yeah, that looked like Pedro Vitor got turned around. As cars were coming out of the boost section, that is a very treacherous exit to the boost section. Cars coming blind through that sweeping left-hand bend where the boost section exit is right there. Nearly a couple incidents, but everyone managed to drive with eyes in the back and then on the sides of their heads. Avoided any contact. Nico has a run coming into turn 1, but chooses to lift and coast. Gabor goes a little bit wide and touches the bump there. Nico going to have a look on his right. Going to try to make a pass into the turn. Gabor leaves him lots of room. Nico hanging around on the outside, manages to get it done through, while Rick Cardall decides to have a peek as well. Oh, Gabor good heads up thinking by Gabor. Chooses to go straight on and into the boost section. We
Cardle
can see
actually-
Nico Pantola just ahead of him. Go
Sorry,
ahead, Tom.
Rick Cardle actually clipped the inside of wall through 5 and 6, and that allowed Alexi Lemerto to get on past him. And Gabor, using the boost, he just wasn't quick enough into it, and he's actually he stayed behind Nico Pantola. I think maybe lost a little bit of talent, and he's run wide there onto the bumps, which has allowed Alexi Lemerto to close up, but not be able to take advantage of it. And there we go. We have confirmation of 3 laps added after the safety car. So I'll get working a little calculation out on that.
Thank you very much, Tom. Yes, as he said, total laps up to 30 from 27, the scheduled start. For those who were unaware or missed it when we were talking about earlier, we've added 3 laps to the total on account of safety car laps, where drivers do not have to use as much energy to negotiate this circuit. Nico Pantola runs in the lead ahead of Gabor, with Rick Cardall and Alexi Lemerto behind him. It is a team-sided train trailing Nico Pantola. And this train is getting... well, it's stacking up as Imran Azar makes a dive for the boost section. Brilliant camera work to pick him up right before he chose to go straight on. See him a little bit treacherous. That boost section is actually implemented. This is a strange trick of the physics in the game that we won't belabor, but we'll mention briefly, whereby it is done with speed bumps. It apparently reduces the friction to some point that the cars are able to accelerate a little bit more quickly. It involves a mod car there to make that nice-looking graphic ahead or above those speed bumps, but you can see the effect of a car running over them. As we watch Nico Pantola coming through the final section as one of the Grigorievs, that bright green and blue machine, comes through the boost section and back onto the main part of the circuit in 17th. As Alexi Lemerto sails by, chooses not to lift off the throttle, hard on the brakes a little bit late, to take second position behind Nico Pantola. Imran Azar now right up behind, Rick Cardall behind. This is a 5-car train, all separated by a second in change at the front.
Imran Azar has now jumped in to use his final boost. Let's see if he can get it. He was definitely struggling a little bit to make a full advantage of it, but it looks like it is definitely working for him this time. He's going to have the overspeed on him into the stadium section here, but he does decide to back out and not use it. I think the boost section really, it doesn't penalize you. It doesn't gain you time.
Yeah, I think there's a trick to getting through there properly. Obviously, the car the car is upset a little bit by going over those bumps if it isn't set up correctly. So Imran Azar, as we watch him go through there, gained a little bit, but not as much maybe as he would have liked. As we watch this, there's a Reg LeBlanc coming out of the stadium section, running in 14th position. A very colorful array of machines. It is all purple near the front, but back here, a rainbow of cars. We've switched back to Nico Pantola in the first position, capitalized on his teammate struggling with the first sequence of corners after the last safety car restart, as one of the Sidus cars has a big slide coming out of turn 3. Nico Pantola going through the boost section now, and Rick following him in.
Yeah. Someone also has joined them at the back, and oh, look at that, the exit there. Nico's nudged in towards the wall, and Ricardo also lost a bit of time, but Nico, it's not worked for him in the slightest. He shuffled back 2 positions, and now he's also vulnerable to any attempt Rick might try to make, but Nico is there on the inside looking to make a move on Gabor. He's very close there, sort of wheel to wheel, but he's had to give way, and he's still trying it. He's still trying to sneak on back past up the inside.
Yeah, that's meant to be a boost, but it's turned out to be a joker for Nico Pantola. He pitched it into the boost section in first position and then came away with third, so I think he'll be a little bit frustrated with that as we watch a car come into pit lane in the background. They cannot recharge energy. They can change tires or make repairs if they need to, but they will not gain any more energy to complete this race. Alexi Lemerto now in the lead from 6th position on the grid, ahead of his Sidus teammate. Alexi Lemerto with Nico Pantola behind.
And Rick Cardall dives to use his, I think it's his second joker of the race, or joker boost of the race, sorry. He has a much better use of it there. He's very balanced, keeps the power down, and he's slotted out ahead of Nico, and he's really up against his teammates now. Chooses sensibly to back out and leave it Gabor to take the lead again ahead of Alexi.
Well, I think we're accustomed to seeing this, a team Sidus train, 1, 2, 3, at the front of a train of cars. Nico Patola will be sick. He had a comfortable first position with a little bit of a gap, and in taking what was supposed to be a boost, ends up being a bit of a joker. You misspoke and corrected yourself a moment ago, Tom, but I think it's turned out to be more accurate to call it a joker. Nico Patola, in the span of one lap, first back to fourth position. That is Gabor in the lead, ran wide of the curbs and may have gone, I think he had four wheels all the way over, so we'll see if race control care about that. I don't know that he gained an advantage doing that. As we look back to Jared Mead briefly, who's come back up to seventh position. He had fallen back to ninth, and now in seventh. Alexi Lamerto choosing to go into the boost section. Ooh, nice and tight around the blue barrier there, but goes a little bit wide of the barrier on the outside, but he looks nice and clean through there. He's going to rejoin alongside his teammate. Oh, and they go side by side into the stadium. His teammate chooses to back out. Rick Cardall not forcing the issue into the stadium. And the Sidus cars continue 1, 2, 3 line astern with Nico Patola behind and Imre Azar right up behind Nico Patola.
Yeah, I think Rick has definitely made the best use of the boost so far. He's really the only one I've seen. Yes, this first time wasn't particularly brilliant through the boost, but his second time was, I think, the only one we've seen actually probably gain anything from it, which is great to see. And Alexi Lamerto did that first one there, almost a sighted trip is your first time through. Try and figure out how to do it properly.
Gabor leads the grid into the 14th lap. It's Gabor at the top, Alexi Lamerto, his teammate, and his other teammate, Rick Cardall, rounding out the top three. Nico Patola in fourth with Imran Azar in fifth. Looking back, nobody, nope, sorry, Nico Patola elects to take the boost. We'll see if he can get through here a little more cleanly than he did last time. A little bit hairy over those bumps, but much better this time than it was last time. He appears to have gained ever so slightly on the cars ahead of him, but not enough to gain a position. Still runs in fourth while the Sidus cars lead.
Yeah, it's a bit of an awkward one. The boost, I think, when they're in a train like we have here with the three cars, it is a great time to use it because it stops you getting clogged up there. But if the three cars are able to get through turns 5 and 6 cleanly and get a good exit, it's going to be difficult to get proper gain on it with that.
It is. With Nico going through the boost on this lap, he is now out of his 3 boost usages, as is Imran Azar behind him. Jared Mead, while we've been talking about this train at the front of the grid, has come up to 6th position ahead of Jeremias Zanella. But Nico Patola, Imran Azar out of boost. Gabor and Alexi still have 2. Rick Cardall only has 1 remaining. So of the top 5, 2 of those drivers can no longer go through the boost section. And the leaders, Gabor and Alexi. Yep, thank you,
Sorry,
Tom.
Travis.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, Alexi Lamerto's dived into the boost, and he's just come out. He hasn't had a particularly great time, but Rick Cardall saw him coming out and lifted his sound of the throttle, just went away as soon as Alexi Lamerto came out. So playing it safe, not wanting to go toe-to-toe with your teammates only halfway through the race.
So I recall now what we have seen in past renditions of this event. Which is that it's not necessarily, it certainly isn't bad, but it's not necessarily an advantage to run around to the front, because Gabor at the very front of this line of cars is going to be punching a hole in the air all by himself, while the cars behind, if they can hang around in the slipstream, will benefit ever so slightly by reducing their energy consumption. So Gabor comfortably in the lead now, about a second ahead of his teammate, Alexi Lamerto, as Jared Mead sits the fastest lap in the background of the minute 6.1. Gabor goes into the boost section on this lap. Gabor breaking a hole in the wind, the cars behind him able to take advantage of the slipstream, and they can absolutely strategize around a few percentage points of extra power when they come to the closing laps of this event.
Rick Cardall absolutely nailed the boost usage there. I think it kind of got a bit lucky as Alexi Lamerto and Nico Patola got a bit tangled up through turns 5 and 6. But Rick using his final boost to maximum effect there and jumping his teammate. And he had a much cleaner run than I think Gabor did, but Gabor just had enough of a lead. If I'm honest, I think it looked a bit more of a avoidance move, because I think Alexi Lamerto braked a little bit harder than Rick was expecting, and he had to suddenly dive out of the way.
Yeah, and Imran Azar getting a run on Nico Patola now, takes a peek inside turn 1, bailed out of it. He could have gotten alongside, but chose chose discretion rather than forcing the issue. Nico Patola was right under Alexi Lamerto's rear wing coming out of the final corner, had a big slide that allowed Imran Azar a chance, but chose not to pounce, and they continue running as they were. Looking at Rony Krompush now, this bright green race green machine, the name of that team, coming out of the final bend, as Nico Patola now taking a peek on the outside of Alexi Lamerto. Taking advantage of the back marker. I think cars jockeying, trying to decide how best to get around that. Nico Patola goes sailing by and up into third position. Negotiating more back markers in the stadium section. Very treacherous. The car wants to understeer badly, and it is even worse when you have to make a tighter line through these already tight parts of the circuit. There we've got a drive-through penalty for a false start. That is car number 77. That'll be Alexei Grigoriev's, one of the Latvians, already running near the back and will fall even further behind. As we look at Gabor coming through turn 3 once more. Tom, it looks like Gabor is in full control, and now he and Rick have a bit of a gap on the cars behind them.
Yeah, they're in a clear position here. They've both got quite a bit of charge, and it's one of those where they just want to...
Oh, sorry to interrupt, Tom. Gabor in the boost section.
Yeah, he's dived into the boost. I think he's come out in the lead again. Still clear ahead of Rick there. He really made maximum use of that. It's one of those wild card things where you practice properly to do the standard track, and while the boost section does throw a bit of a spanner in the works, it can be a little bit tricky getting it right on the exit. So do it early, and then he just has to control the race. But it has had a bit of a sloppy run there through the stadium section in all, which has allowed Rick to really close that gap in again.
Yeah, Gabor was pretty clean through the boost section, but a little bit sloppy, as you said, through the stadium, and Rick absolutely nailed it. Very big lift from Gabor, conserving as much energy as he can coming into the first corner. Rick Cardall does the same, as the fastest lap of the race is set by Nico Patola, minute 5:92. Way off the pace of qualifying, as we expected. They don't have the full power that they do in qualifying and practice. Looking back, heard there may have been a little bit of contact in the background as we watch Gabriel Lara, who's fallen all the way back to 13th. He started in second position. Awful race for him, gone from bad to worse. As now we look at Eduardo, and I couldn't see which car that was behind him. A lively race for 10th and 11th position here. Looking ahead once more to Gabor, who has mirrors full of Rick Cardall. Ooh, very wide of the apex there. Looks like Gabor might be struggling a little bit, and Rick Cardall has this car hooked up, Tom.
Yeah, he's really doing it a lot better than we have Gabor at the minute. I think Gabor might just been a little bit unsettled after that last trip through the boost section, because he's been a bit messy since he's come out from there. But we know Gabor, we've seen him a lot, we know what he's capable of. He'll get himself dialed back in, I'm sure, and he'll get doing his usual business, really.
Following Gabor, his technique, I think, is a little bit different coming out of the final corner than Rick Cardall's. We got another fastest lap of the race by Nico Patola in the background. Gabor gets a very good run into that final sweeping bend, and he feathers the throttle on the way in and then is full throttle down to the apex and all the way out, which uses a little bit of excess energy, we might say. But then he's carrying a little bit more speed into the first corner and then has a very big lift on the way in to avoid using any. Rick Cardall, I think, not quite as much speed out of the final corner and has to lift a little bit later to stay close to Gabor, though, as we can see here, he is just a little bit cleaner through the stadium section, though struggling with understeer there coming into turn 15. Gabor picking up a bit of a gap. Let's listen to Rick as he's coming through here. We're looking in the background at Martin Kapal, who has a purple car sliding right in front of him. Didn't see who that was, but Martin will have had to take evasive action.
Sorry to interrupt. There's been an absolute kerfuffle going on in the stadium section between LeBlanc and Zanella. I think Zanella actually managed to do a full rollover. Luckily for him, landed back on his wheels. As you'll see, he has a bit of damage to the top of his car, but managed to land back on his wheels and get going again. But he's really struggling, and it looks like he's got quite a bit of severe damage to his suspension setup, as his car just looks a bit all over the place going around the corner there.
Yeah, that hasn't stopped him from getting a good run out of the final corner. He's going to stay on the power and late on the brakes into turn 1. Looked a little bit ragged into the apex, but managed to avoid the barrier on the outside. The nature of this damage, though, going to make it difficult to negotiate left-hand corners, as we saw, as you said, Tom. Gabriel Lara off in the background, his race from bad to worse to even worse still. As we watch, Rick Cardall still lurking behind Gabor. They've started the final third of this race, and now finishing the 21st lap. We have Gabor in the first position and Rick Cardall in second. Nico Patola a little bit further behind this race. Don't even see him in the background when we're following Rick Cardall now. So big is that gap. Nico Patola in third with Imran Azar in fourth. Alexi Lamerto in fifth. At some point, Imran Azar got by him, and we missed that. Jared Mead up to sixth from eighth. Lorenzo Lucidi in seventh with Pedro Vitor in eighth. In ninth position, Carlos Eduardo with Leandro Vargas in 10th position. Rick Cardall and Gabor in clear control of this race now.
Yeah, talking about power, I believe the only person who's going to be at risk of running out is going to be the 31 car of Owner. I think he's around 20% power last time it showed up. There we go, he's at 17.5%. He needs 3.3% at least for a lap. And he's got eight to 9 laps to do. He's just not going to make it. Is the only one so far that I can say that about. Everyone else, I believe, should make it. Alexi Lamerto might be a little bit close, but he should be okay. Lara's making a move up the inside of Kapal there. He's still got Zanella in front to get past, who's a bit all over the place still. So Lara might be a bit concerned about that with that damaged car ahead, but he's doing a good job to get a bit of a recovery drive going. He needs 8th place to get, but there goes Zanella's making the issues around the stadium section, and Lara's taken full advantage of it and swooped around the outside and has done both of them in about 5 corners.
Very clever driving by Jeremias Zanella there. Gabriel Lara and Jeremias Zanella to get by, to get through there cleanly. The energy scores, the energy total just went off the screen, but I was about to say that what we saw there at the top was a pretty cruel indictment of my assessment of the amount of energy that Gabor had. He's running around in the front and having to make this slipstream for Rick Cardall behind him, but still able to conserve. Rick, we would expect to be conserving in the slipstream, but Gabor very carefully, very judiciously managing his energy and not struggling at all to keep enough for the late race, while Rick Cardall might be a little bit tight, more than not many of the drivers behind him. Rick Cardall might be in danger, Tom, at 22.5%.
Yeah, it's going to be a close one. I do think it is definitely going to be. And as we see there, a stop-go penalty for the 71 car causing 2 collisions. I believe that is Vargas. And so it's been a bit messy, and I wonder if that might be as a result of all that chaos we saw slightly earlier.
Yeah, drive-through penalty, not a stop-go. Sorry. Yeah, we got confusing messages there. It said drive-through. Tom said stop-go, and then it was cleared and upgraded to a stop-and-go. So you're a prophet, Tom. You called it beautifully, though you may not have known it. Looking at Pedro Vito briefly in the background as we jump ahead. There we go, back to Jared Mead, who is on top of Alexi Lamerto. Now, there was a gap between these drivers when I looked at the timing tower just a few moments ago, and now Jared Mead right there. Alexi Lamerto, a very quick and talented driver. Jared, talented in his own right, but I don't know that he doesn't usually run right with Alexi Lamerto, but today, closing up under his rear wing, Alexi clearly struggling a little bit. Jared inspired. We have a race for the top 5 here.
We do indeed. As we look at it here, we're now with 5 laps to go after this one, and there are still a few drivers who have all 3 of their boosts left to take, so that can start playing an effect in the next couple of laps, so they'll be having to take those every lap if they don't start doing something about it now.
They will indeed. Jared Mead, notably, has 2 uses remaining, while Alexi Lamerto only has 1. And we saw them come through turns 5 and 6. Alexi Lamerto struggling to get the front end of the car to work. Jared Mead negotiated it beautifully and came out of those corners right under the rear wing of Alexi Lamerto. Jared Mead putting on a very strong performance against one of the most talented drivers that we see in these events, Alexi Lamerto.
Yeah, he's doing a fantastic job, and he's really managing well. I wonder if possibly about any sort of tyre wear or anything like that could be playing into his hands. We'll have to find out and see what's going on. There we go. We swapped to Owner now. He's got less than a lap of fuel to go. So it's going to quite possibly be seeing another maybe late safety car with him running out of fuel, so run out of energy. So sorry, depending on where he is on the track and if there's anywhere for him to dive out the way for when he breaks down.
Speaking of energy danger, this fight that we were just watching between Jared Mead and Alexi Lamerto has now gone to Jared Mead. Jared Mead with more boost and more energy. Jared Mead conserving really well. Alexi Lamerto has to see the position, and Owner Eskenston now coasting without energy to a stop. He's going to negotiate the first corner. This may be tricky. He needs to pull. Yeah, he needs to pull off into one of the runoff areas, or he is going to be a hazard. He chooses to stay on circuit. Race control is going to take a dim view of this. I think he's going to have ears full of displeased stewards, and perhaps after the race, the shouts of his competitors. Yeah, this is kind of a poor show from Owner. He had plenty of time to get off and out of the way, but instead slowly rolling to a stop, and chooses to teleport back to pits. He'll be in even more trouble for that. Yeah, we'll see how race control weigh in, but I think he will be sternly reminded of the rules after this event concludes. However, that won't disrupt the running. Looking at the front once again, Gabor in the lead with Rick Cardall still right there. Nico Patola has caught up to them, had fallen back, but Nico Patola, though we hadn't seen him in the background for a few laps, is now right there. Somebody has punted off one of those tire stacks ahead of these guys.
Talking about the mention of Alexi Lamerto with his energy in his fight with Jared Mead, I think Jared has done the energy a lot better, because as you see, Alexi Lamerto only on 10% now. I mean, Rick Cardall's also only on 9%. These guys are going to be very, very close to, even if they're going to make it to the end. It's going to be an interesting one. I really thought they would have more energy available, but now it's definitely going to be a bit closer.
Yeah, energy consumption is going to play into the end of this race, and so will be using these boost sections. Rony Krompush just came out of the boost section, as we saw. A few drivers further back compelled to use theirs this lap and the remaining two. Martin Capal just used one of his, so he will stay within the rules as he fights the driver ahead of him there. It was Rony Krompush who has gotten ahead of Reg LeBlanc. Gabor looks to have plenty of energy, but as you said, Rick Cardall, Nico Patola may be in trouble. Imran Azar has plenty. Jared Mead should also be pretty good. Alexi Lamerto also in trouble. We may have an exciting shakeup here at the finish, Tom.
Just to jump in there, Travis Lara pulling an absolutely fantastic bit of racecraft there through turn one to just I think he was holding that position. Might be corrected there, but fantastic job to just get the cut back on him and get beautifully out the corner.
Oh, Tom, we just saw Gabor come through turn one, and Rick Cardall has vanished into the background. He will have Nico Patola on top of him, who also needs to very carefully conserve energy. Rick Cardall is going to be really, really tight on energy to make it across the finish line. If I recall correctly, you estimated 3.6% per lap, is that right?
3.3 at the halfway is what they needed per lap, so they'd saved a bit with the, but it's going to be close. Cardall has 3.2% energy left, so he's gonna. I don't think he's going to make it. If I'm honest, I think he's gonna run out right at the final corner. We saw this at the first race of last year, where a lot of people ran out on that final lap, and of course, with the track we were on last year, it was uphill to the finish. They don't have to worry about that here, but they still need to make it to the finish. To finish, basically.
Yeah. They do.
Yeah, Gabor here. Sorry, you go.
Yeah, Gabor comfortably through with an amount of energy that will take him to the finish as Imran Azar, Nico Patola. Oh, Imran Azar splits Nico and Rick Cardall. Rick Cardall has to back out to have enough energy to make the finish. Sets up a brilliant move by Imran Azar to go through the middle. Nico Patola tries to duck in on the inside. Rick Cardall has nothing for these two. Gabor streaking away in front. Nico Patola and Imran Azar away from Rick Cardall, who has to give up second position. He might have Jared Mead to contend with in just a moment. Rick Cardall having to conserve every last electron in those batteries, while while Jared Mead has conserved so carefully in the background. Jared Mead now in Rick Cardall's mirror. Hopefully we can look back at this as Gabor comes through the final sequence of corners. That is Gabor through 15, wide to the barrier, and coming through 16 now. Gabor will take the win in race 1, while further back, Imran Azar is ahead of Nico Pantola once again. Imran Azar will come across the line in second. Rick Cardall out of energy. Jared Mead goes by. Will take 4th position. We wait to see who comes across second. I thought it would be Imran Azar is able to get by Nico Pantola, comes through in 3rd, and Jared Mead in 4th position right under Nico Pantola's rear wing. A blinder by Jared to save that energy and pass 2 cars, nearly 3 in the final laps. Brilliant stuff from him.
You now got, it's the lone image of Rick just strolling down the start finish. As we've got 2 cars going fast in the background. Don't think they were fighting for position quite. It was very close.
Yeah, that was Pedro Vitor and Jeremias Zanella with Leandro Vargas coming by. Roni Krompush now side by side with Gabriel Lara. Gabriel Lara second, back to 15th or 16th at one point, and has now recovered to an 11th position with other cars falling by the wayside. That we always anticipate. Yeah, he has. We always anticipate exciting conclusions to these races because so much of the event depends on the conservation of energy. As a car goes flying wide over the curb, coming through, that's Martin Capal having a bit of a stroll over the white line and the curbing out of the final corner. And there we go. That is the first of 2 races in this first event of the 2023 season concluded. That is Gabor in the top spot, comfortably in front with essentially no challenge in the final laps of the race. Imran Azar manages to take 2nd position ahead of Nico Pantola. Imran Azar carefully managing energy. Nico Pantola less so than Imran Azar. Jared Mead brilliantly managing his energy from 8th position up to 4th. Lorenzo Lucidi doing the same, conserving all the way through and able to pounce in the closing laps in 5th position. Pedro Vitor takes 6th. Eduardo in 7th. Rick Cardall tumbles to 8th as he coasts across the line all by himself. Alexi Lamerto, his teammate in 9th, also struggled to conserve enough energy to make the end of the race, with Reg LeBlanc rounding out the top 10. Tom, I hope we get more of that in the second race. That was a blast.
Yeah, I think that race there has really showed you who's planned around safety cars, who's done full sort of race runs just to see how much they're going to use, where they, and how to alter their strategy to make sure they make it. Someone like Jared Mead looks like he nailed it, and then there's others that just didn't quite do it. I mean, Alexi Lamerto I think he was 3rd at one point, wasn't he? And now he's all the way down to 9th. He's missed that reverse grid order, so he's going to be starting in 9th, where for Rick, it hasn't worked out for him. He did run out of energy, but fortunately for him, he managed to get that 8th position, so he's going to be reverse grid pole for the second race.
On the screen there, you can see a race control message. Conduct of car 31 under investigation post-race. That is Onur Eskinstan. We were talking about him a few laps from the finish. He ran out of energy and parked the car just after turn 6 and then chose to telepit. Obviously, well outside the rules. You are disallowed. I was about to say unallowed. You're disallowed from telepitting. You're expected to stay on circuit until cleared by race control. So they will have a chat with him. There you can see the picture of this circuit on screen once more. We have just concluded race 1, was scheduled for 27 laps, has the asterisk next to it. It actually ran to 30 after safety cars early on. Ran green the entire distance after the second safety car, so we thoroughly enjoyed that. And now we await gridding for race 2. Race control, I think we'll have a brief discussion with a few of our competitors, set the grid, and in a few moments' time, we will be ready to go. We'll take a break for a few moments, and then we will be back with you for race 2. Welcome back. We have returned here on Sim Broadcasts on Twitch.tv and YouTube, bringing you the first round of the Master Race Car E-Challenge 2023 season. Race 1 has concluded. We are ready to begin Race 2 in just a few moments' time. We've had a few moments to breathe. We hope you have all had a moment to take care of your biological imperatives. And now we are setting the grid in the background for Race 2. There you can see the layout of this circuit, a very good recreation of the Mexico City E-Prix circuit, and a layout here in Live for Speed. Tom, we had a very exciting Race 1. Ton of action in the closing laps, which we anticipated, but obviously could not exactly predict. Nico Patola, Imran Azar, Rick Cardall all gave us a thrilling recreation of the conclusion of the first event last year, where Sidus Machines split the stricken car of Sean Lee coming to the start-finish line. Give us your predictions for Race 2, Tom. Hit us.
Well, I'm going to blow everyone away here and predict another safety car off the start. It's I know it's quite a shot out of left field, but that's my initial prediction. I think we might see a bit more pace from the likes of. I think Rick Cardall might actually be looking for a win here today. I know he is starting on pole, so he gets that opportunity. I say that as if he wasn't looking for a win initially, but I think with Gabor starting in 8th, Rick's possibly his best opportunity to go on and get this win. So that's going to be my prediction. He'll have to be a little bit more sensible with his energy usage. I think he just needs to come off the power a little bit earlier, and a few more need to do that as well.
Tom, alluding to the rules there for the second race, we do reverse the top 8 positions to set the grid for Race 2. So Rick Cardall, who finished in 8th in Race 1, will start on pole position. Carlos Eduardo will begin the race in 2nd position, with Pedro Vitor in 3rd. Lorenzo Lucidi will start 4th. Jared Mead, Nico Patola, Imran Azar, and Gabor will round out 5th through 8th positions. Gabor finished Race 1 in the lead, took the win, and will now have to negotiate 7 cars ahead of him, and maybe anyone trying to send one behind him. He'll have Alexi Lamerto, his teammate, starting right behind if he hopes to win Race 2. Drivers readying up in the background. We will be set to go in just a moment. Hearing that Rick Cardall is not in the server, he is obviously disconnected. We don't know why, so we'll wait to see what's happening there. Though everyone is getting ready to go, we may not have our pole sitter on the grid when we start the race. So waiting to see what happens with this in the background. Still no Rick Cardall. Nearly everyone ready to go. Just a couple drivers who aren't ready yet. Tom, this shakes things up if Rick Cardall doesn't join the grid.
Yeah, just so I was saying how great an opportunity this is for him. It turns out he's not here for it.
Yeah, shame for him. However, I don't think Carlos Eduardo will be too fussed by this, because that will promote him to pole position for the start. Drivers gridding up now, waiting for, here we go. We've got drivers on the grid and waiting to begin our grid presentation. See, looks like Nico Pantola there in the background. Another colorful array of machines there. As we approach the front of the grid, almost ready to present. And there we have on the right side, because Rick Cardall is missing, Carlos Eduardo starting a pole position. There we go. We've had LeBlanc on pole and then Alexi Lamerto on side. We've reversed the top 10 instead of the top 8. That's okay. Reg LeBlanc, Alexi Lamerto, followed by Rick Cardall, and then we will have Carlos Eduardo and Pedro Vitor. Behind them, we will have Lorenzo Lucidi and then Jared Mead, that red-orange machine on the right. After that, we have Nico Pantola, followed by Imran Azar, that bright neon yellow machine, with Gabor, Race 1 winner, starting on the left side of the grid there. Behind them, we have Roni Kronpush starting in 11th position, with Gabriel Lara started 2nd in the first race and fell way down the order, followed by Martin Capal in that goldenrod and orange number 64 machine. Next, we have Jeremias Zanella after Martin Kapal, followed by Leandro Vargas. Next, the Latvians, Oleg Grigorievs and Alexeys Grigorievs in the green and blue machines. I'm struggling with colors today. Next, Onur Eskenstan, who drew the ire of race control for running out of energy on the circuit, and then telepitting, followed by Felipe Almeida. After him will be the Italian of Yacine Bidal, and then the Brazilians, Breno Almeida and Lucas Rosa at the back of the grid. Almost ready to bring up the lights as we look now at Reg LeBlanc at the very front of this grid. I apologize for the confusion a few moments ago. There was some disagreement about whether the top 8 or the top 10 are reversed, but we have reversed the top 10 and put Reg LeBlanc, the Canadian, on pole position. Lights coming up now. 4, 5 lights on, and we are green. Reg LeBlanc, good start, better start alongside by Alexis Lemerto into the lead. Cars 3, 4 wide in the background as we have a few drivers side by side into turn 1. Second and third, Reg LeBlanc falls back to third position. Alexis Lemerto in the lead. Ooh, contact coming into turn 3. A couple cars spun, but looks like they may have gathered them up. No cars stricken, no chance of a safety car yet, though they still have to come in and negotiate this tricky double apex corner. 2 cars side by side coming into the boost section. That's Imran Azar, who finished on the podium in the first race. Everybody through cleanly so far. Alexis Lemerto into the lead, Eduardo in second, Reg LeBlanc in third, with, it looks like Jared Mead in fourth position. Yes, Jared Mead up to fourth position. Everyone almost cleanly through the first lap. The back of the grid now coming through the stadium section. Roni Kronpush with a Sidus car alongside now chooses to fall in line. Cars running single file line astern out of the stadium section and through the final sequence of bends. A couple drivers are going to take, are probably going to take penalties sometime during this race because you are not permitted to go through the boost section on the first lap, as a few of them have done. 1 racing lap completed. This race will be 28 laps, longer than the scheduled 27 of the first one. And we are through lap 1. Everyone clean and safely. No safety car. Tom.
Yeah, just taking it back to that initial little kerfuffle. That was Jared Mead going into the back of Pedro Vitor, and so that's what caused him. But I think he fortunately managed to do a full 360 and get going again without an issue. There we go. We got the 2 people through the boost there. I think maybe 2 Lara's actually come out ahead of Imran Azar. Fantastic use of the boost there and puts him in a great position to start striking at those drivers ahead.
Looking at Alexis Lemerto now in second position, still trailing Carlos Eduardo, who has a little bit of a gap on Alexis Lemerto now. It looked like Jared Mead has come up to third position, so it was Reg LeBlanc, has fallen back behind Jared Mead and Nico Patola now. Jared Mead, a great drive in race 1, and now going even better for him in race 2, chasing Alexis Lemerto as he had done in the closing laps of race 1. And he's closing even more still coming into turn 1. Alexis Lemerto, a big slide. Carlos Eduardo, a bigger slide. Looks like he got into the barrier. And now Alexis Lemerto challenging him for the top spot with Jared Mead right behind under his rear wing in third position.
Just noting slightly further back, Pedro Vitor and Martin Kapul going side by side. A little bit of contact which put Kapul into the wall, but got going again as Vargas dives into the boost.
We can see cars streaking by here. Ooh, cars 2, 3 wide coming out of the boost section. That is Gabor in 9th. He's only up 1 position from the start, trying to negotiate all of these drivers who are arguably slower than he is. 3 wide into the stadium. Oh, Gabor, I don't think he saw that there were 2 cars trying to go inside. Inadvertently gave them the squeeze, and a couple cars spun. I didn't see which drivers they were. That's Roni Kronpush going around after contact with Jeremias Zanella. So it's all coming off. Clean through the first lap. Second and third laps getting a bit more ragged for these drivers. A few drivers spinning and losing positions in the stadium section as Alexis Lemerto trails Carlos Eduardo for first position. That gap opening up. Carlos Eduardo gave up some time on the previous lap through the first sequence of corners after making contact with the barrier. Alexis Lemerto, Tom, clearly struggling with this car. Tom is having a bit of technical
yeah.
difficulty there. Oh, there's Tom.
I'm
Welcome
back now.
Tom.
Sorry about that. Yeah, we know he's very quick in a lot of cars, and he was very quick at this last season as well. Just maybe something about this circuit or the new car that's just not quite gelling with him. Maybe just a slight setup issue. We'll have to see what he brings next week, or we'll ask him later tonight if he's up for that, and we'll find out what performance he's got next time round.
Looking at the timing tower as we see cars once again thinking better of going side by side through the stadium. Ronnie Krompush trying to take a different line through the stadium to gain an advantage here. Ooh, takes a peek, chooses better. These cars running very closely through the final sequence of bends now. Looking at the timing tower, Imran Azar, Gabriel Lara have already used all of their boosts, so they will not be permitted. Well, they're certainly not prohibited, but they'll be penalized if they go through the boost section once more during this race. At the front, Carlos Eduardo, Alex Lamerto, Jared Mead, Nico Patola, Lorenzo Lucidi. The top 5 have not used any boost yet. Gabor, up to 6th from 10th on the grid, has used 2. So these drivers, different strategies with boost. We can see a couple drivers, Imran and Gabriel Lara, who have made up a couple positions, have already used all of theirs. And now at the front, we have Alexi Lamerto, everyone going through the boost this time, as though they may have heard us on stream, Tom. Shaking things up a bit. Nico Patola in 4th position there, coming out of the boost section. Lorenzo Lucidi choosing not to use his, still right there with Nico Patola.
Yeah, seen a few of these coming out the boost section. They're not quite getting that corner at the end of the straight. A lot of them are running a bit deep or sliding slightly when they get to the corners. They need to work on that a little bit, as Ronnie's going a bit wild.
I'm really impressed by Carlos Eduardo at the front, who is extending a gap on Alex Lamerto. Not many drivers ever extend a gap on Alex Lamerto, as Imran Azar easily goes by the sidest driver into the braking zone. And, ooh, just misses the barrier. That's about as quick as you can go through the first corner. Looking back from Imran Azar, now up into 7th position.
Yeah, it's a very interesting fight. Gabor has had enough of being overtaken and dives to the boost, hoping to make the best of that with someone else in front of him. Lucidi, I've just been told. So we'll see how they manage to deal with the boost. Gabor there getting very quick through but is he going to get the position? Lucidi comes out ahead of Imran and holds his position, but Gabor doesn't manage to get the position back.
Now seeing the energy figures for the first time in this race, Carlos Eduardo using ever so slightly more than Jared Mead, who has taken 2nd position from Alex Lamerto. I think Alex Lamerto still struggling with that car, obviously not having as good a time with it as he would like. Gives up 2nd position to Jared Mead, who is conserving just as well as he had in the first race. Carlos Eduardo with 79%, Jared with 80%. Alex Lamerto, a bit more conservative with the energy in this race, 79.5%. While all the drivers behind him right at the 80.0, 80.5 mark. There we can see energy or boost usage. Alexi Lamerto, Nico Patola, Lorenzo Lucidi all taking one on the previous lap. Carlos Eduardo, Jared Mead electing to hold on to theirs, have not used it yet. And we will see if Jared Mead is able to close the gap to Carlos Eduardo. We did not see or hear much from...
has been absolutely
sorry,
punted.
Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, Imran spun around and Lucidi, I think, made contact with him, which caused him. Not sure exactly what happened. I just saw it out the corner of my eye. But everyone got going again, but a bit of damage to everybody.
Yeah, a bit of a concertina. Thank you for the vocabulary in my ear. That is very helpful. Coming into turns 5 and 6, and no fault of anybody. I think somebody got it a bit wrong and sideways into that sequence of corners, and then contact is inevitable when the track is so narrow and the visibility is so limited. There you can see a race control message on the screen. Car 77, drive-through penalty for causing a collision on lap 1. That is Alexei Grigoriev's, one of the Latvian drivers for Ogre Heat. I believe that is a new team in MRC or NDR events. Somebody will either confirm or contradict that in the moment. Ronnie Kronpush, the receiver of a warning for causing a collision on lap 1.
That's Jared Mead, sorry.
Thank you about that. I misread the number. 98, not 96. That is Jared Mead. Only a warning as our leader, Carlos Eduardo, goes flying through the boost section. He will have 1 deducted from his total as Jared Mead continues in the background. Now has a 4-second gap to Alexi Lamerto behind him. Carlos Eduardo and Jared Mead driving away with this in the early running.
Yeah, I wonder if Alexi Lamerto and Nico Patola are just trying to save some energy or something. trying to figure out what's going on. They're not doing bad by any means. They're third and fourth, but nobody seems to have an answer for the pace of Carlos Eduardo all the way up there in the lead.
No, and as we watch these cars come through the stadium, there's a train forming behind Alexi Lamerto. So I think he certainly, after the first race, he knows he needs to conserve a little bit more to be quick, consistently quick at the end. But I wonder if they are holding up the drivers behind them from Imran Azar on board with Rony Krampusch now, the number 96 car, which I confused with the 98 a moment ago. Apologies to Rony. Running behind Pedro Vitor and Jeremias Zanella ahead of them. This is a 3, 4, 5 car train with Rony Krampusch at the back. Looking ahead to Nico Patola in a third, who is now 4 and change seconds behind Jared Mead. Still holding on to all of his usages. Nico Patola only 2, while Alexi Lamerto behind him has 2. Imran Azar keeping pace, though he used all his boost on the first 3 laps. We believe he may draw some attention from race control for having used boost on the first lap when that is prohibited by the rules. We'll see if they take note.
Just heard an area 4 cars are getting investigated for using the boost on the first lap, so be interested to see what effect that's going to have on the end result.
Yeah, that will change things further back, though I don't believe it affects any of the leaders, though I don't recall off the top of my head now where they started. So we'll see what shakes out with race control. Looking at Martin Capal now. I love this color scheme. It looks very autumnal as we watch Carlos Eduardo take his second trip through the boost section. Gingerly into the corner. Ooh, the car really wants to get sucked to one side or the other. He just keeps it off the barriers on the right. And looks like he may have, he's extended his gap on Jared Mead ever so slightly. Jared Mead's gap to Nico Patola behind him has fallen by a few tenths to about 3.5 seconds.
Yeah, I think that's because Nico Patola's, I think he's got past Alexi Lamerto, and he's starting to put the pace on a bit. He did set the fastest lap of the race last time round, so be interested to see what he delivers this time.
Indeed. Now watching this train come through the stadium section, easy as we saw a few laps ago when somebody got the car a bit sideways in turns 4 and 5 to lose control and cause a cascading series of collisions. Everybody cleanly through the stadium and into the final bend. That's Gabriel Lara, started second in the first race, tumbled back and then recovered with his competitors falling by the wayside as everyone's boosting around him. He's off the throttle very early and lets 3 cars by. Not sure what happened there, if he had a problem, perhaps lost his throttle pedal, but now he's in the power again. Ooh, and squeezing the, I couldn't see who that was that he squeezed down to the barrier, but holds on to ninth position. Yeah, it's Pedro Vitor. Thank you, Tom. A bit naughty, squeezing him to the barrier at the apex of the corner, but left him just enough room. Aggressive but fair, though I suspect that everybody will take a dim view of doing that and give him a little bit less quarter the next time he's in the same position. Looks like he might take a look into the left-hand bend here, thinks better of it. That would have been a proper punt on Rony Krampusch if he had decided to stick his nose in there. Decides to fall in behind. Rony Krampusch continues unabated. Gabriel Lara stays in 10th position.
Yeah, I think this might be an event Lara's trying to fix or want to forget about, because he had a fantastic result from the duels, getting that P2 for the grid, and then it's just gone all out of the way for him. He's just flown all the way back down. To see Rony going for the move up the inside, just sneaking on past and getting it done, as same as French LeBlanc. Takes a bit of a heavy-handed approach to Pedro Vitor in the background and knocking him out of the way. Be an interesting one. Surely an ABC.
Yeah, Lara also threw Vitor, who is now tumbled back. I think he must have gone wide in turn 1 after all of that was coming off. As we look ahead to, well, we looked at Carlos Eduardo briefly, who is off all by his lonesome in 1st position. Now we'll have to negotiate back markers just a corner ahead of him as we watch Gabor mired in 7th position, unable to make any headway. We really expected to see him come forward, but the leaders, Carlos Eduardo and Jared Mead, have been running so strongly. Jared Mead extending the gap slightly on Nico Patola again. So, yeah, Gabor. Ooh, there I was about to say, Gabor looks like he might have a chance to gain 6th position in turn 1, but we have the race control message on scene. Cars 5, 15, 47, 51. Those are all the drivers who
Imran
use the boost. Yeah.
Yeah, Imran Mazar is going to be at risk of this.
Yeah, Zanella, Imran Azar, Pedro Vitor, all under investigation for using boost on the first lap when they are not supposed to. Very, very optimistic move by Gabor there, taking advantage of the car ahead of him going wide. Lucidi missing both apexes in that double apex 5 and 6 complex, though Lucidi able to retain that position. Gabor does the switchback maneuver, though it's going to be hard to make this pass on the outside of the stadium, though he can use a different line to his advantage as a back marker jumps out of the way to get a good run out of this final series of corners, maybe take advantage of the slipstream, use a bit more power, put the throttle down a bit earlier in the final corner. We saw him doing that so well in qualifying. But we look back to Reg LeBlanc now. Here we go, up to Gabor once more, who is right under Lorenzo Lucidi's rear wing. Lorenzo Lucidi defending this going into turn 1, and Gabor has to hang behind for one more lap.
Yeah, it's unless he wants to try and do a Nico Pintola-esque move around the outside here, he's going to be stuck here. We've got the back marker there ahead who's staying out the way. Thankfully, not getting involved in his. Gabor going to go for the boost. No, he's not. He's going to go for a bit of a late cutback, though. He's definitely going to get a slightly better exit. Oh, he has to use all his boosts. Sorry.
Yeah,
he's
Gabor
tucked up there.
Yeah, sorry, Tom. Gabor, I think, is going to benefit from his teammate being ahead of him. Alexi Lamerto struggling. Oh, no! Oh, he had everything he needed there. Alexi Lamerto can hold up Lorenzo Lucidi and let Gabor, and maybe help Gabor anyway, try to make that pass. But Gabor in a bit too hot into the stadium. A nice four-wheel drift into the barriers. He'll have picked up a little bit of damage on the left side of his car, compromise his race even further. I think Gabor is going to be very frustrated. I heard, we can see now, too, that Jared Mead is about a second behind Carlos Eduardo. Carlos Eduardo did a half spin in the stadium section and went through one of the tire stacks. Now Jared Mead, in the catbird seat with his energy, has 2 points more than Carlos Eduardo does. So Jared Mead conserving beautifully, using exactly the amount he needs. Carlos Eduardo running a slight deficit. Dare we guess that Jared Mead could pull off a win?
I think it's very possible. I have done some calculations to energy usage and where they need to be. Carlos Eduardo is roughly where he needs to be, but he doesn't have anything in reserve if he needs it. As we see Gabor going around the outside of Lucidi there, getting it done right at the end there of the stadium section and getting that job done. It's something he's going to have been trying to get done for a while now. As I look back across on my other monitor, I've got Jared Mead going up the inside of Carlos Eduardo for the lead of the race. Carlos is still holding it round the outside. He's not giving it up yet. They're still side by side now through the sweeping turn left of turn 2 as Jared Mead runs a bit deep into turn 3, does hit the barrier, but he gets the job done in the end. He is ahead and into the lead of the race.
I was about to call Gabor's move Nico Pintola-esque, as you had a few moments ago, and then Jared Mead does the same thing. Very smart driving through turns 1 and 2, manages to make the pass on the outside of turn 3, and now Jared Mead in the lead of the race with an energy advantage over Carlos Eduardo. That 2-point deficit is about half a lap worth of energy, so Jared Mead in position, has 3 boosts remaining, Carlos Eduardo only 1, and Jared Mead, we watched him on board just a moment ago. Oh no, heard in the background that LeBlanc has rolled the car and he is on his lid. Jared Mead takes the lead of the race on the merit of his own talent
Safety
and pace.
Safety car.
And now we have a safety car. There's the call. The sign goes yellow at the top of the screen. Reg LeBlanc, a bit of contact, and with Jeremias Zanella, and Zanella takes the worst of it, ends up on his lid. Looks like the entrance to the boost section, and this will completely neutralize Jared Mead's advantage. Jared, before the safety car, able to get by Carlos Eduardo and take the lead entirely by his own doing with a 5-second advantage over Nico Pintola at the time. And now it is all erased. Jared Mead has it all to do again, though he's proved in the first half of this race that he can drive to the front and then hold the top spot. don't think we have any reason to believe that he wouldn't be able to do it in the second half of this race.
Yeah, well, what he proved there in half a lap, he took 1.8 seconds out of Carlos Eduardo. So the real worry here is for Eduardo behind, because he's going to have the likes of Nico Pantola, Imran Mazar, and Alexi Lametta, as well as Gabor there now, all going to be stacked up right behind him. So it's kind of one there where Eduardo is going to have to try and pull the same performance to what he did at the start of the race out. But then we know he's going to be at risk of these drivers there. We're getting past the halfway mark now. We're probably going to have, I'm going to take a rough guess of about 10 to 12 laps left after the safety car has finished. So they're getting to the point where they need to start making these moves to move up the list.
Yeah, I would anticipate, because we're past halfway through, maybe we get one lap added, though it'll depend on how long this safety car period lasts. This is obviously a setback for Jared Mead, but if I were him in this position, I think I would feel a bit more confident, because he knows he has the pace. He was able to drive away from the cars behind him. He was able to take first position from Carlos Eduardo by his own racecraft.
Oh, let me just cut in. Sorry. Light rain has started coming down, so we might be seeing drivers forced onto the wet tire compound soon.
Yeah, well, this changes things further. A safety car period to neutralize the field, bunch them up, call it a wet race, and compel drivers to change tires onto a more slippery compound. And yeah, I was saying that Jared might feel more confident because of the circumstances. He and Eduardo were able to drive away from everyone behind them. He will have this buffer of Carlos Eduardo, who is every bit as quick as the competitors behind. And Jared, I was watching him while we were calling all the other action on the circuit. Watching Jared Mead negotiate this track, he has been so smooth and so precise. He doesn't have the kind of ragged, using every drop of performance out of the car to quickly negotiate the circuit like Alexi Lamerto or Gabor do, but he's so precise, so smooth, so conservative, but still quick, that I think he should feel really good about his performance and his prospects at holding this lead. However, it is about to get a lot more challenging. Pit lane still closed. The drivers stay on circuit behind the safety car, though Nico has gone in, so he will change tires. We'll need to review the rules to see if they are compelled to change under light rain, or if they can take their chances to see if it's declared wet.
Yeah, he's taking the gamble early on. That'll be interesting.
Safety car in this lap.
Safety car in this lap, as you can see there on the sign. So Nico Patola taking the gamble. I've been reminded of the rules. The track condition is still dry, though the weather is light rain. So the track condition could go to wet. It could also remain dry. So Nico Patola taking a chance on jumping the field if the track condition does go wet. Though Jared Mead and Carlos Eduardo, everyone else except Nico Patola behind them, choosing to stay out and gamble on it remaining dry. Jared Mead will want to get a jump here and use Carlos Eduardo behind him as a buffer and extend the lead he had before this safety car period was called just one lap ago. We wait to see how many laps will be added to the final total. We speculate 1, but we don't know yet without race control's call, as Jared Mead slowly leads Carlos Eduardo out of the stadium section. Jared Mead not going yet. Carlos Eduardo right under his rear wing. Tom, when's he going to go?
I reckon now. Oh, you guessed it. Yeah, there we go. He got the jump. Sorry. And he's gone a bit too fast. He's gone all the way off the track. He's going to get back on. He's got a clear lead here. And this is just screaming bad news for Nico Pantola. And he's absolutely overshot turn 1. Jared, he's cycled all the way down 3rd, 4th. Is he going to hold 4th? He is going to hold 4th for now. But that is worst case scenario. I think he just got a bit nervous the restart there. And he's just paid the price of it. He's gone way too deep. Tyres absolutely freezing cold. And he's just been made to suffer as a result.
Yeah, now it's a wet track. All of these guys will have to stop. Nico Pantola will not, who is all the way down in 11th position, but he'll be able to streak past pit lane with all of these drivers stopping. Carlos Eduardo trying everything he can to keep Imran Azar behind him. Jared Mead, it looked like he had given up the advantage he got by going wide over the curb and then got it all wrong going into turn 1. But he was able to do this on pace and talent in the first half of this event. He certainly could in the second half as we watch Carlos Eduardo coming down to the wall, slows down over the pit entry line. Carlos Eduardo in, Imran Azar in behind him, looking to see everyone else coming down to pit lane behind them. We will have a gaggle of cars, 20, not quite 20, 15 cars in pit lane. And now we look for Nico Patola to come around the final bend. There he is, sliding all the way out to the curb. Take him, Tom.
Yeah, past the entry there, and he's coming down on the brakes to turn 1. Is there anyone else coming out? He's run wide. He needs to hit. Oh, he's just missed the wall there. We got 3 laps added in total, so we're going to have a 31 lap race with 10 more laps to go. This is going to mean that anyone with less than about 35% could be in issues. I've been told that. I think that was wrong, so we'll have to wait and see if there's any other changes. 2 laps added. There we go.
Sorry,
laps,
Tom, I'm gonna cut in. Carlos Eduardo was able to get out ahead of Imran Azar. They were nearly side by side coming out of the pit exit, but now he has mirrors full of Imran Azar. Carlos Eduardo slid into turn 3, a very lazy and sad slide. Ooh, he gets just ever so slightly tapped by Imran Azar, upsets the car, but manages to hold it together. These two are going to race side by side. Carlos Eduardo struggling to get the power down onto the road, while Imran Azar, last of the late breakers, slows the car down into that right-hand bend, but Carlos Eduardo able to stay on his outside, the inside for this sequence of bends. Very, very aggressive, but fair driving. Oh, so close, wheel to wheel. Imran Azar gets pushed wide over the curbs. They're coming up on a back marker it looks like Almeida. That's Almeida ahead of them. So Imran Azar, Carlos Eduardo will have to get past this back marker while they're sliding everywhere. Carlos Eduardo leaving rubber on the circuit everywhere. Oh, sawing at the wheel, a huge 4-wheel drift coming into this bend. The conditions so challenging right now, Tom.
Yeah, it generally looks like wet weather. I had Pete say it in my ear, and yes, I can only agree. It's all over the place as we have Gabor going up the inside there, getting the brakes on nicely. Lachini on the outside, he just had to concede. Oh, Gabor getting all squiggly with the tyres there, really struggling. It's super difficult control. Remember, we got 300 odd kilowatts to the rear wheels on just these tiny, not that grippy tyres, which is going to cause them all problems. As you see, Imran Azar getting it struggle understeer. It's just affecting him, and it's just a Constantina effect to go down there. The tyre bundle going for a bit of a journey itself.
Gabor has come alive in these conditions. Imran Azar and Carlos Eduardo jostling with one another, contact here, contact there, wheel-to-wheel racing, struggling with wheel spin, but Gabor is managing it perfectly. Has come up to it would be 3rd position, not 2nd position. It is second of this gaggle of cars. As we look at, that is Pedro Vitor running side by side with Gabriel Lara. Pedro Vitor has to give up the position. Ahead of them, Carlos Eduardo struggling so badly with the car, but Gabor has sailed away from him in pursuit of Imran Azar. Now, looking back once more, side by side, these two again out of the final corner. Who is going to be the most courageous on the brakes? That will be Pedro Vitor, but it's so easy to overshoot the first corner. Manages to keep it inside the white lines there, but Pedro Vitor once again under pressure from Gabriel Lara, who sends it up the inside. Pedro Vitor will try to do the over-under, but Gabriel Lara looks like he has finally got it done. Pedro Vitor backs out, thinks better of challenging into this sequence of bends. As we look ahead to Ronnie Kronpush, Tom, we haven't said a word about him in that entire shuffle coming into and out of the pits to change for wet tires. Ronnie Kronpush is up to 5th position.
Yeah, absolutely visionary move from him. He's done a fantastic job. Sorry, I had to just stop for a second there. As I'm saying, complimented him so much, he just clatters the wall. So it's just gave me a little chuckle. Sorry about that. But yeah, he's done an absolutely fantastic job. His finish in the last race wasn't particularly brilliant, but he's done a fantastic job to recover this event and get all the way back up there. As we see Gabor now still hunting down, and Lucchini bouncing off the wall on the way around, but Ronnie there closing on him as well.
I'll apologize on Tom's behalf for his laughter. He is sharing this inspired diction and brilliant calls of these race, while Pete, who appears to be surprised that Tom is so competently calling this race, is laughing at him. So send your messages of disdain for Pete. We thank Tom for his great calls here as we look at Pedro Vito, who has sailed it way too deep into the first corner. And, it looks like he may have picked up a little bit of damage. I think he got it into the barrier, Tom.
I would agree. He definitely got it into the barrier at the end of the start-finish straight. I think he just overestimated how much grip he had on the brakes with these, and it just didn't go well for him at the end. Let's see. Oh, and Almeida has spun on the exit of towards the exit of the arena section. There we go. Got there in the end, but fortunately, well out of the way of anyone who just needs to get the thing turned around and out of the way as quick as possible. We should all be good.
My thanks to the chat for dunking on Pete. I appreciate all of you very much. As we look, there we go, to Nico Pantola. I was hoping we would pick him up, and that was some beautiful timing. Watching Imran Azar coming through the final corner now. Ooh, he's gone a little bit wide into the barrier, so that will slow him down. Not enough to pull him into the clutches of Gabor. Imran driving inspired, enough to stay ahead of Gabor behind him. We'll reset the order on lap 25. We have 5 laps remaining. Nico Pantola is in first position with Imran Azar running second behind him. Gabor in third, Lorenzo Lucidi in fourth, Roni Kronpush in the top 5. Carlos Eduardo in sixth position with Jared Mead in seventh. He was leading this race, and he looked very comfortable. And then the safety car restart combined with having to switch to wet tires has ruined his race. Gabriel Lara in eighth with Pedro Vitor in ninth, and Martin Capal in 10th position. We can see the energy figures there. Everyone looks to be doing a much better job conserving energy there. Ooh, Aroni Kronpush. Well, I was about to say he's conserving energy, but wheel spin will not help as much as... Ooh, sorry, guys. I'm watching Carlos Eduardo while we're calling Aroni Kronpush coming into the stadium section there. Carlos Eduardo got it all wrong in the the fifth and sixth corners, that double apex right-hander, and allowed Gabriel Lara to get alongside and now ahead coming into the stadium. These drivers conserving energy a bit more judiciously than they did in the first race. Nico Pantola has a bit less left than Imran Azar, but most of them fairly level on energy, though I would say, Tom, Gabriel Lara, why don't you look at your calculator? I am going to guess that he is in danger of not making the end of this race.
Being in danger is exactly where he is. He's going to have to back off a bit, save a bit more, use a bit less, all that stuff, because he's on the edge, he's close. But I'll have to have a look. I'm going to pay attention to how much I see Nico use in a lap, and then I'll let you know what his actual true risk is.
So while that is going on, we've got a race control message for cars 47 and 59 under investigation after the race. That is Jeremias Zanella and Reg LeBlanc. It doesn't say why they're under investigation. We can find that out as we watch Imran Azar in second position, still holding that gap to Gabor behind him. Imran was struggling very badly with those tires through the final sequence of bends earlier in the race. Appears to have gotten it a bit more under control. As we look ahead to Nico Pantola, who is in command of the race easily, has this entire front stretch and more for a gap ahead of Imran Azar. Watching Gabor now come across the start-finish line onto the brakes into the first corner. Neatly misses the red paint and the tire stack on the right side, and just a slight kiss of the barrier on the exit. Jared Mead, who was in total control in sixth position, has come up from, I believe he fell down to 9th or 10th after the sequence of pit stops, but nowhere near where he was earlier, let alone where he wishes to be now. Coming through turn 3 and around to the most distant point on this circuit. Jared Mead still needs to use some of his boost. He will need to do that on the next lap and then the remaining laps after that. I've just been reminded that they do not need to use the boost on a wet track. That's my mistake. I apologize for that. As Nico Pantola goes sailing by a back marker right before we look to Imran Azar once more. Gabor is closing this gap just a little bit. Tom?
Yeah, he's doing his normal. He's consistent. He's smooth, and he's putting the performances. And Imran Azar he's proven he's quick here today, and he's going to have to try and mount some sort of defense. He's got 4 laps to do so, and we'll have to see how it plays out. We're on that. No, 3 laps now. Sorry, ignore me. We're on 3 laps. It's, as we know, it's not easy to overtake here. It's nice and tight. There's really only very few places you can do something, and you have to try and force it. And especially now we have these cars with less grip available, and the drivers aren't really used to the tyres. I don't think many have practiced with this tyre compound. I mean, Gabor here is really showing you just want to tug that handbrake and get it rotated because, well, it's understeer central when you've got the slick race tyres on, but with these tyres, it's definitely a lot harder. So we'll have to see if he's going to be able to have the pace to actually get past him once he gets right up to him.
Yes, indeed. Nico Pantola pulled off a bit of a blinder earlier by choosing to go to the wet tire, guessing that the race might go wet, and indeed it did.
Oh,
that
spinner,
gave him,
big
oh
crash.
dear. Thank you, Tom. Yeah, that was Gabor, and Gabor and Imran Azar coming out of the stadium section got into that. May have been Martin Kapal. It was a yellow and orange car. It was not Martin Kapal. Not sure who that was. It was Reg LeBlanc sideways through there. Imran Azar and Gabor unable to see him, and both of them clipped him coming out of the stadium section. Roni Kampush and Lorenzo Lucidi. I was about to say that these two are fighting while I've been watching the Gabor. Oh, that's Reg LeBlanc. Reg LeBlanc off again in turn one, holds the brakes instead of rejoining ahead of these two. Heads up driving by him. Roni Krompush has gone up into fourth position, taking it from Lorenzo Lucidi, though he has a big slide coming out of turn three. Two fights going on at the same time. Gabor is now right there with Imran Azar as they also approach a back marker coming into the stadium section.
Yeah, what you said earlier with Gabor being last of the late breakers, he is really showing it here today. And we're going to have to see now, swapping back to Lucidi, is he going to have an opportunity with you got to stop the traffic. There we go. The back marker traffic keeping out the way for Gabor. He's getting around the corner a lot neater than Imran is. I don't think Imran is pulling the handbrake on those tighter corners to help him get round. But let's hope this back marker traffic stays out the way of these two. They're really struggling to keep the grip, so let's hope they just chill out and let these two go. As we come on to the final lap of the race, Nico Pantola pretty much about a quarter of a lap ahead of anybody else. And we're just, there we go, hard on the brakes.
Sorry, Tom, I'm going to interrupt you. We've got the final lap beginning with Nico and two fights at the same time. Roni Kronpush fighting with Lorenzo Lucidi. Lucidi was able to get by when Roni went wide on turns 5 and 6 on the previous lap. Roni now chasing Lorenzo Lucidi. Coming by Almeida, the back marker, gets out of the way. Lucidi, a lot of wheel spin coming out of turn 1. Gabor now right behind Imran Azar. We'll have to keep an eye on both of these. But Imran, laying down a lot of rubber, using a big slide to power the car around. Nico Pantola
Gabor sent it up the inside into the stadium section, but Imran managed to hold on to it. Sorry about jumping over you there. I just need to do it.
I'm sorry, Tom. Everything happening here at once. Roni and Lucidi got together, and Jared Mead is now by Rodi Krompush. We were watching Nico Pantola styling through these final corners. This big power slide on the throttle, dunking on everyone through the final sequence of corners, but we don't know who's going to finish in second or third position. We've got to look back to Gabor, who is still trailing.
Imran got a far better exit out the stadium section where Gabor just struggled. Gabor's styling it with it. He needs to be careful. If he gets it wrong, the people behind him are not that far behind him. There we go. Gabor gets that third place. Imran Azar in second, and here we go behind. Lucidi is coming round to take that fourth place spot. There we go, Jared Mead coming round 4th, 5th as well, round the final corner there. Let's just see how they all come on in. Roni finishing in 6th position, and surely the others won't be too far behind.
Yeah, sorry about the commotion there. Everything happened all at once. Roni and Lucidi came together. Jared Mead came flying through. Nico Pantola's stylish power slide through the final 6 or 7 corners as Gabriel Lara comes across 7th behind Roni Krompush. Carlos Eduardo in 8th. That'll be Pedro Vitor in 9th. And we watch to see the final cars come across. The final car across the line was Alexi Lamerto came across in 10th with Martin Kapal finishing 11th. And then cars a lap behind, Rosa in 12th, Reg LeBlanc in 13th, Grigoriev's in 14th. And here we go, the 63 car. That's Grigoriev's going into pit lane. Will cross the line as he comes through, comes past all of these pit boxes. Oh my word! Yeah, Tom, that was that was too much happening at once for us to handle. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, I think
that was a very exciting conclusion.
I think I need another 4 sets of eyes and about 16 different cameras for that.
Yes, indeed. There we go. We have the results on the screen. Nico Pantola, a brilliant strategy move and a calculated gamble to go onto wet tires when the track was still dry, but they had sent conditions to light rain. Imran Azar manages to hold off an inspired Gabor. Gabor was mired in the middle of the pack at one point in the race. Managed to recover to third position, 1 second behind Imran Azar. Lorenzo Lucidi finishes fourth. Had a great race, a tight fight with Roni Krumpush in the closing laps, but the two collected one another. Roni Krumpush coming off worse than Lorenzo Lucidi did, giving up fifth position to Jared Mead. Roni himself finishes in sixth. Gabriel Lara finishes seventh, with Carlos Eduardo, who ran at the front for most of that race, the first half of it anyway, before ceding the lead to Jared Mead about halfway through and then falling back after the safety car and wet race was declared. Pedro Vitor in ninth with Alexi Lamerto finishing 10th. Very disappointing day for him. He clearly struggled with the car through both the first and second races. Martin Kapal will finish 11th with Lucas Rosa in 12th, Reg LeBlanc 13th, the Grigorievs in 14th and 15th position, Almeida in 16th, Jeremias Sinella in 17th, and the final car finishing the number 71 of Leandro Vargas in 18th position, 18 laps down. And you can see there the DNF 50%, DNF 40%. That is the race distance they completed. Will have some impact on their points total, if I recall the rules correctly. And there we go. That concludes the second race today, the second race in the first round of the Master Race Car E-Challenge 2023 season. We ran it here today on this beautiful Mexico City E-Prix recreation in a layout made by Michael Malik. Tom, there we have the podium finishers for the second race. Round out your thoughts.
As per usual with the E-Challenge, it's just incredible. There's so much action going all the way through the grid, and it goes all the way through the race as well, as we saw action right until the flags there on both times, and it was just lively from start to finish, and I frankly cannot wait for the next event.
Unfortunately, we have 1 month until the next one, so we've got some time to breathe, some time to refine, and some time to plan. We are going to take a breather for 1 minute while we let everyone get organized for interviews. If you would like to join us in the commentary box and discuss your race with us, by all means, please do. We will return in just a moment and talk to the drivers. And we have returned. We do have a few interviews lined up. First in the commentary box with us is Nico Pantola, winner of race 2. Nico, that
Hello.
looked treacherous. You made a brilliant call, taking a gamble to come in for wets before everybody else did. Tell us about it.
It was more of a lucky call because I thought it's gonna be like you have to change the tires instantly after the track changes to wet, but seems like it was still dry before the safety car went in, so I thought I first made a bad call, but it turns out it was the right one since the green flag pit stops here are really that much slower apparently, so all good. So
Indeed, it was. It paid off beautifully. One thing we didn't get to mention, because there was so much action during that race, is that there didn't appear to be much practice on the wet tire before the race. Not only did you make a lucky strategy call, but I think you benefited from one extra lap on wet tires. Do you feel like that helped?
yeah, probably. I didn't do that many laps with the supers though. Only like 5 or 6 laps in the free practice, but yeah, that was enough to help to see like the tires will be fine and everything goes correctly. And thank God it did actually so.
Uh,
Oh yeah, I forgot to thank my cat first for mental support and then again my sponsor Pacific for sponsoring the car, of course.
Yeah, we noticed. We mentioned that a couple times during the broadcast that normally you're in Citus livery, but today you're running Pacific. So, yeah, thank you to them for running that sponsorship on your car. First
Yeah.
race looked like you struggled a little bit. You ran near the front. There was a lot of shuffling of the top positions. Did you struggle, or was it just a shuffling of drivers making small mistakes here and there?
Well, I don't know. I don't know really. It's I did a small miscalculation at the second part of the race, like at lap 15 or so. I thought I could push more, and at the end I noticed that my charge was going too low, so I had to push, stop pushing and just stick to the place I got. So Imran got past me, but then again I got past Rick, so I didn't really lose anything. So it's all good for me. Podium is fine.
Well, a podium finish and then a win is, I think anybody would be happy with that. So congratulations to you. Thank you for joining us in the commentary box, and we will see you again in 1 month. Best of luck to you.
Yep, you too.
All right, that was Nico Pantola, winner of race 2, podium finisher in the first race. I believe that rounds out our interviews. You can see the calendar on the screen there. Today was the first round at the Mexico City E-Prix circuit. Our next round will be on February 12th at the Berlin E-Prix circuit, followed by the third round at the Singapore Grand Prix circuit on February 26th, New York E-Prix circuit on March 12th, and then we will conclude the season on March 26th at the Adelaide City E-Prix circuit. That will be the 5th round. All of them starting at 1800 hours UTC. Note the time change for the last event. That will be after daylight savings in most places anyway. So mark your calendars, check those times. Tom, I believe that concludes our broadcast for today. Share your final thoughts, and then we'll look forward to the next one.
Yeah, final thoughts. A few interesting things for some of the drivers going on. We expected, don't want to put any shade towards him, but we expected, I think, a bit more Alexi Lemaitre to be a bit faster today. Nico's tyre change, of course, a bit of a visionary strategy. Don't think I could have even predicted that one. And I think Gabriel Lara, where he just dropped off, had that amazing qualifier, then just dropped off. That don't know what happened there, but it would be interesting to find out hopefully in the future.
All right, thank you very much, Tom. I think that will do it for us. We'll thank everyone on the Sim Broadcast team in our ears and doing the work in the background to put together all of the cameras. Chris McElroy for the brilliant camera work that looks exactly like the cameras on the real Mexico City E-Prix circuit. This layout also faithfully done, beautifully constructed by Michael Malik of the Master Race Car team. Special thanks to them for organizing this event, and special thanks to New Dimension Racing, who helped put this on, run race control, and support everyone in running these events and many more events in the Live for Speed community. Finally, to all of you who are watching today, we couldn't do this without you. We're so thrilled that you joined us today to watch us put on this event, first round of the Master Race Car E-Challenge 2023 season. Thank you all very much. Be safe and be well wherever you are. Thank you and goodbye.